Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Hey guys, welcome back to our Tuesday Night Podcast. I guess I should say welcome back to me because last week was the first time that I was actually away during a Tuesday night. I think in the 4 years, I think we've almost been doing this for 4 years. I think I've only missed, gosh, I'm going to say maybe 3 shows, maybe 4. But except for one, I had an agent fill in my spot. We were still live. Actually, I think one time we ran a rerun. We'll never do that again. I never say never, but I was away last week, so thank you guys for giving me the night off. It had been quite some time since I'd actually had an opportunity to go away, and it was fun. It was crazy. Went to Colorado, went to a conference, and I had an opportunity to drive up a place called Pikes Peak. I don't know if any of our listeners know anything about Pikes Peak or whether you guys have ever driven. I don't know, Joe. Maybe we even have a photo that we can put up. One of the craziest things I ever did. In fact, I actually had PTSD about it. I had nightmares about it for 2 nights driving up this mountain. It was the scariest thing ever. Over 14,000 feet in elevation and no guardrails for most of the trip. And anyway, it's crazy. Maybe Joe can pull up a photo here. I sent him a couple things saying this is like insanity. There's a good shot right there. That was as I was getting closer to the top. You can see it just dropped off. But anyway, I'm back with you guys. We had our sales meeting. We have a monthly sales meeting here at Sachs Realty, and it happened to be today. So it's on a Tuesday. It's always the first Tuesday unless I'm away. And one of the biggest reasons why today's sales meeting was so important was because we have some new rules going into effect as a result of the NAR lawsuit actually going into effect on August 17th. So I'm going to try and stay out of hot water tonight, maybe. Those of you that have been following me, you know, I just kind of, I like to talk straight. I say things that aren't really typical of a real estate broker or an agent for that matter, because I feel that the public at large should know what's going on, that you should have transparency. And it's been something that we really haven't had in this business. I can remember when I started my brokerage back in 2017. So Sachs Realty hasn't been around for that long. Prior to that, many of you know, I was a contractor and builder. Still was in the real estate business, was a licensee, worked for national brands prior to starting my own company. And I can remember when I started to do this podcast, people were saying to me, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you telling people this? And quite frankly, some of the things that we say on our show are things that I feel that we should have been saying forever. Maybe agents would be more popular in the poll public opinion than what they are today. We've got speaking of polls, and Charlton, I always appreciate you, man. You have been with me for a long time, if not from the beginning, for quite some time. We really appreciate your comments, but he had commented here about his vote on the poll. So we now know, we don't know who votes what, but unless somebody says something, and then, we know how you vote. So what can we say here? It looks like, so the question is, and you guys can go over and vote, are you buyers ready to pay your own agent's commission? It's very tiny on the screen here, Joe, for me, but anyway, maybe I can make it bigger. See what this does. Of course, I won't know how to get it back, but so the commission changes. This rule changes starting August 17th. It's coming up. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, if you're a buyer or seller, what this means for you, how that, may change. Keeping in mind, I'm in Maryland, but a lot of these things are, these rules are a national ruling because of the lawsuit with the National Association of Realtors. So we're going to talk tonight We're going to help you with some buyer and seller negotiations. So no matter whether you're a seller or a buyer, tonight we're talking to you. We're going to give you some pointers how to negotiate with your agent. Commissions have always been negotiable, but I guess the Department of Justice and whatever this lawsuit, somewhere in the line they felt that there was price fixing or some antitrust. Please cruise over to the poll here and vote. We'll check back in on that. But we're also going to talk about what agency means, because a lot of people in the poll is really dealing with buyers paying their agents commission. Now, these are the new rules that are going into effect that are going to affect agents and buyers nationwide, because not every state had what was called a buyer representation. We have in Maryland since 2016. There has been a law where there's no assumed or presumed agency. So if you're going to take someone out on a tour to go look at houses, really if they are saying they have an agent, they should have a signed contract. That's since 2016. Prior to that, we were allowed one face-to-face meeting, where we could take somebody out. We met them on Zillow or whatever, or your friend. And, we meet them out on a property. The first time we could actually not sign a contract. But they ended that in Maryland in 2016. A lot of agents that have been in business since then still don't know that, and really weren't managed well and taught that, or that wasn't enforced. So in this meeting that we had today, we had a revival. We had a revelation going on, because we talked about the way to do business. And we always do that here, and we're very passionate about it. But we had a great turnout. Our agents were passionate about it. A lot of questions going around. My attorney said, with this new ruling, he's been going out to big brokers, big meetings, and agents are clueless. The brokers are a lot of the brokers are clueless. The managers are clueless. They don't even know what's going on with this new ruling. We're going to cover it tonight. We're going to talk about the main changes. All right. We're going to look at also, I'm going to show you more insight into the MLS, because the housing market is crumbling. It is falling apart. And I'm not a I told you so kind of person, but I did tell you so. And I told you this about 2 years ago. I started talking about a buyer market coming in April of 2022. I know a lot of you want to think that I'm a perma bear and a ultra doomer, and that I've been saying this for 10 years. I read the comments like, Sachs has been saying that for a decade now. You don't even know who I am, if that's the case. We've been talking about it since April of 2022, when I looked at the metrics and realized for the first time that, not the first time for me, but the first time in many, many, many years, the worst bubble we've ever seen, but for the first time in many years, we watched this thing get to a point where the numbers just didn't work. And you can prop it up for so long. We're going to look at some how government handouts haven't been working, stimulus haven't been working. They've been kicking the can down the road. So we're going to go over some of that as well. But I'm going to open up the MLS to you, and we're going to look at just how many price reductions that are happening in and around our market here in Maryland. You can do this yourself too on Zillow or Realtor.com if you want to put the work in. But I'm going to open up the back door for you and kind of show you what's really going on in the housing market. So, and then we're going to talk about mortgage rates, because you're being fed a lot of BS right now about mortgage rates are dropped the lowest. That's crap. Mortgage rates are still very high. Okay, and unless somebody's buying down rates, they haven't dropped that much. This is all propaganda. This is all, being fed to you to try and get you to jump back in and have some kind of a fiery urgency to buy now before it's too late. Well, I have news for you. When we look at some of these stats, you're going to realize, man, you got some time. And if you're selling and you're overpriced, we're going to talk about that too. So we'll dive in. Tonight is a live show. Keep your comments coming. We'll go ahead and flag those. And, I don't know, we may even take some live callers tonight. We'll see how it goes and how we go. But anyway, let's talk about some of these changes on the MLS. Again, I'm going to try and stay out of hot water, but the way things have worked and real estate commissions are and have always been negotiable. The problem is that I believe that the consumers have not been very educated. And of course, you see for years and years, discount brokers have been around forever. They throw numbers around. I always say in business, if you walk into a store and you have a bottle of water and it's $3, and you walk in another store and the same exact make and model of bottle of water, size, manufacturer, is $1.50. Well, you know that you could buy the $1.50 and you save money. The problem on the service side of things is you never really know. It's like hiring a kitchen contractor to put a new kitchen in your house. You can price shop and say, well, this guy's going to be $50,000, but this guy's $35,000. The chance may be that the $35,000 guy is going to put you through a nightmare that the $50,000 guy wouldn't. So maybe that's not the case, but maybe it is. But the consumers first have never really been very educated on, our commission is negotiable. This is what I charge, or this is what the fees are. A lot of times agents say these are the average rates, which is, we're taught in real estate school that you don't say that. That's illegal. There can't be price fixing. But they found, they came to this conclusion that they thought that this was being done in the industry, whether it had been or not. And they said that, we're going to eliminate this, because a lot of agents would look at a commission rate, and if a buyer wanted to go out and look at a house, a lot of agents would sway a buyer away from going to a property where the seller wasn't, or the seller's broker, more correctly, wasn't offering what they figured was enough money. And because the buyers thought that it was free, that their buyer's agent was free, because it was never really talked about. Oh, the seller pays my bill. And then certain agents were looking at the listings going, well, this one's this much money, this one's that much money. Well, that house a pile of crap. This one you should go with. And in some cases, they did that because it was a more expensive commission check for them. This has happened. I have firsthand had agents say that they're not going to show a property unless the seller would, and they don't even realize that's not how it worked, but unless the seller upped the price, the commission. When you're telling a real estate broker that, you're pretty stupid. Or at least when you're telling me that, that's pretty dumb. But we know that, like in any business, shenanigans are going on. But the way that it has typically worked is that a seller, in many cases, will hire a listing agent to sell the house. They'll negotiate on a commission. And then what happen is the seller authorizes in the contract, the listing agreement, authorizes the listing broker to cooperate with a buyer broker. And then that fee or percentage of the overall cost, fee to the seller, is broken down in the listing agreement, and that's what happens. Well, a lot of people thought, well, that's kind of dumb, because why am I paying a buyer's broker, the agent, but ultimately their broker is who they're really paying, because the agent can't get a check. They can go to jail if they do that. He can't make the check out to your agent. A check has to be made out to the broker, and then the broker compensates their agent. That's why they're called an agent, not a broker. Some states are different. They're broker-only states, but I'm just giving you an overall of how this thing plays out. Well, what they said was, it's kind of dumb, because if I'm a seller and I'm paying a buyer's agent, broker, representative a commission to negotiate against me, that's pretty dumb. And I don't disagree with that theory. If you think about it, you're like, yeah, right, well, that's kind of what's happening. They're on the opposite side. And you're paying it, seller, ultimately. But they go, but the seller's not really paying, it's the broker. Well, it's coming out of the seller's proceeds. So a lot has changed. The first big change is now agents can no longer advertise a commission to a buyer's broker in the MLS. Now, Redfin was the first company that came out. And when these lawsuits were the allegations were floating around, Redfin was kind of tooting their horn saying, well, we're going to disclose the buyer agent compensation on our website. And they did. They took it down, but they did. They thought they were doing great by doing that. When in fact, it's never been showed to the public, right? Is that good? Is it bad? Well, that is really the broker's obligation to tell the buyer that their agent's not free. The buyer's agent should be saying, we're not free. You should be signing a buyer agency agreement saying, this is the commission. Now the question comes down to the buyers. Are they going to pay their own agent's commission? Because now the seller's not technically allowed to pay the buyer's broker. They can still do it through offering the listing broker and allowing them to compensate the buyer broker. So that's really hasn't changed. But what they did was they added these fields that gives the seller the ability to add contributions to a buyer's bottom line. For instance, if I was selling a house for $500,000, now one of the conversations is going to be, a seller, do you want to offer a buyer, not the buyer's broker? Do you want to offer the buyer something? That something could be towards their closing costs, towards their title fees, towards their, loan origination, towards their broker fees. But they're not paying directly to the broker. They're going to give it to the buyer. And those are going to show up on the buyer's side of the settlement sheet, which a lot of that's going to be predicated if they're only allowed to get a certain amount of seller contributions back from a lender, like 3% on a conventional loan or 6% on FHA. If you're getting an FHA loan, the seller can give you up to 6% towards your closing costs. Well, they can't exceed that. So that's boxed in on what someone can offer seller contribution. I know this is over a lot of people's heads. Just try and stay with me. But the question comes down to, on the listing agreement, at least in Maryland, and I'm sure in many states, the seller can still authorize their agent to give a percentage of their listing agent or listing broker's commission to a buyer's broker. So that really hasn't changed. The difference is I can't advertise that. It's kind of dumb to me, but hey, the rule's the rule. So what has to happen? So you're a buyer, and maybe this will clear a lot of it up, and you want an agent to represent you, and you sign a buyer agency representation agreement. The buyer's agent is going to say, this is how much money we charge to help you buy a house. Could be a flat fee, could be a percentage. If the seller doesn't allow the broker, listing broker, to pay your commission off of our agreement, or the seller doesn't give you, the buyer, a concession or contribution at the settlement table, you owe this money. The buyers are going, well, I don't really have it. Let's just use an example. Let's just say if it were 2% on a $500,000 gross, it's $10,000. Well, most buyers don't have $10,000 to put down on their house. We're seeing it. Buyers are buying at the top of the limit. They don't have a lot of cash. They need their cash, blah, blah, blah. So if it's 1%, well, you can do the math. So when we're dealing with that, understanding the mindset that the seller can either pay the buyer or the seller can tell their broker out of their negotiated fee they can cooperate with the buyer's agent. Nevertheless, the buyers are going to have to sign now that says there's a fee involved for having our service. So agents are going to have conversations with their, if this sounds confusing, imagine what an agent that has taken the bare minimum course and has no idea of what they're doing, how confusing it is for them. If you think it's confusing for you, it's equally confusing for them. Most of them don't even get it. It's hard to get our agents to get it. We had to go through role play, do all kinds of crazy stuff just to try and get this point across. The bottom line is no lender right now has stepped up and said that they're going to finance the agent's commission. So we have a poll. We can pull the poll up again. And we can take a look at this. 381 votes. Hopefully that's going to go up. Are you buyers ready to pay your own agent's commission? Commission changes start August 17th. 20% yes, 52% no. That's a pretty big number out of 383 votes. Out of the vote of the poll of public opinion here, I'd say that's a pretty good indicator. 14%. So they're saying 52% say, no, I'm not ready for that. And I believe that. Actually, I think that's very low. 14% said, I won't pay a buyer's agent, and 14% I say I won't hire a buyer's agent. They're going to try and tackle it on their own, or they're going to be, going straight to the either transactional broker or listing broker, and really kind of winging it on their own. And some can handle that. If you're a first-time buyer, I certainly don't recommend it. But I don't recommend you hire anybody either. I think that you have to hire people that are competent and that do the job, not your best friend from high school or your mom's best friend that lives 3 counties away that has commission breath and just wants to help you so they can get a commission check. Maybe not the best case scenario for you. You have to look at who are these agents, what are their track record, what areas do they work in, how many of the transactions have they done in the last 12 months, last 6 months, last 3 months, what are their fees, and and you have to negotiate from there. But I don't recommend that you just skip it completely. But it is a conversation that you're going to have. Now, I want to address the sellers, and we're not going to stay on this lane, okay? Because I don't want to lose you. Because we have a lot of stuff to cover, and it's important, and it's going to be eye-opening, and you need to know it, what's happening, okay? And if you're an agent, listen up, because we're going to be talking to you too, because agents are fleeing this business like crazy. I'm seeing teams that are high-producing teams post in Instagram and Facebook that they are having the worst year that they have had in years, if not decades. We are at a sales level that is a 50-year low. Okay? So when you spread that up and you chop that out and you put that across America, agents are not making money and they are exiting left and right. I say that's great. Because the ones that are going to be exiting are the ones that probably shouldn't be in the business. And that might upset you. If you're an agent, you may be offended at that. That's okay. You offend me. So, when I have to deal with you, or our agents have to deal with you because you don't know what you're doing. Let's not mince words. You guys know I'm one for that. But let's talk to the sellers for a minute, because I'm going to tell you what I recommend. All right. And I'm not telling you how to do your business, and I'm not telling you how to negotiate with your agents, but I'm telling you what my recommendations are to my clients. I can't tell you my clients what to do, but when I'm under agency agreement, I can give them a professional opinion. One of the things that we have to acknowledge with these changes is that there are a lot of good agents out there. And I know you don't want to believe it, but it's true. And not one of my clients that I can say has said to me that they wish they didn't have me in their transaction. Not one. And in fact, they all say thank you for everything that you've done. I even had one client 2 years ago say that everyone needs a Todd. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm telling you, intellectual people, smart people, with whether they have a lot of money or don't have a lot of money, but want to own a house or want to sell a house and want their assets protected, you need a good agent. Okay. Until things change. Now, if things change with AI that, and we completely redevelop it 10 years from now, when a house can sell another house, maybe things would be differently. But let me tell you what I am doing or what I'm recommending. Okay. What I'm saying is this: because of this change, in Maryland, 100% of the buyers who have agents are under contract with their agent. 100% of them. Now, somebody might say, well, maybe it's 80%. Well, then that would be illegal. Because according to state law here in Maryland, if an agent is representing a buyer or a buyer actually has an agent, they have an agency agreement. And those agency agreements really constrict that buyer from stepping out and buying a house without them. It limits them. So if you're a buyer and you're signing a buyer agency form, and you should be if you want representation, that agent kind of has you tied up in some ways because you're under contract. And you're under contract that if you buy something, to pay something. So what does that mean to the seller? If I was a seller, I'd be thinking, well, who has the buyer? And if 100% of the buyers have agents, have contracts, I would be thinking about whether I would be quick to say, well, I'm not going to offer any compensation to the buyer's agent because they may not come and look at your house. So we have to be smart here. I can't tell my seller what to do, but there's this contribution thing that's over there. Seller contribution. Do you want to offer the buyer anything towards their closing costs? Well, my opinion of this is, how do we even know who the buyer is? What do we know that the buyer's going to offer you for your house? You're going to offer them a contribution, and then what if they come in $50,000 less or 20% less? So you're going to put that out there first that, yeah, I'm going to give them X amount of dollars or X amount of towards their closing costs. How do you even know? I mean, that to me is very ambiguous. How do you know whether they're going to get an inspection or not? How do you know whether they're going to come back and ask for $25,000 in replacements and repairs? How do you predetermine this is my point. How do you give a predetermined amount to a buyer that you don't even know and don't even know how much competition you're going to have when you go to pull the trigger and sell? How do you know whether you're competitive in your market? Maybe you're competitive in your marketplace and you don't need to give a contribution. I don't know. These are conversations that you're going to have and negotiate with your agents. But I'm not so sure that this whole thing is in the best interest of the general public. We need transparency. We need to know that fees are negotiated. A couple things I'm going to tell you guys is, and these agents, I mean, if you're an agent, you're listening, you may be cringing in your seat and you want to click off and stop listening to me, but you just can't. Because some of what I am saying just may be striking home with you. What we need to do as agents is we need to legitimize our businesses. Because our businesses have not been very legitimate. We have not been professional as an industry. And I'll give you a prime example of it. How many of you just get a Zillow lead or a Realtor.com lead and cruise on over and meet the people on the front porch for the first time? You're going to really build some rapport that way. Most of the time, they think you're the listing agent and they have an agent, and you're just wasting your time and their time. You're not really helping them. We need to get back to legitimate businesses where we sit down with the buyers one-on-one. We sit down. Obviously, we go to the seller's house most of the time. I've got a little story to tell you about how we just found out that, the real owner stood up on a listing that, we thought there was an owner, but the owner really wasn't the owner. And that we'll talk about that. But typically sellers, you go to their home. But the buyers, you got to have buyer consultations. We got to sit down with these buyers and we got to show them the way that they buy a house. And we got to prove our worth and we got to tell them what the costs are. And we haven't been fair about that. I think that we have to be honest with ourselves. meeting somebody out on the front porch and not signing the proper paperwork, the documentation, not them understanding how we get paid. But what I'm going to tell you, buyers or sellers, is that you need to read these contracts that you're signing. Two things. One, look for a termination clause, whether you're a buyer or seller. How do you get out of the contract if you become unhappy, right? That needs to be first and foremost. I've seen states that have buyer agency forms with no contracts. Tennessee. I talked to an agent in Tennessee. I was helping out one of our buyers. They sent me over the buyer agency agreement. Says, I don't see any termination clause. I've heard you say that before. I looked at it. I say, there is none in here. That's crazy. And I called the agent and she said, oh, we just let them out. Oh my, no, it's not written down in there, but we just, if they don't want it, we just simply let them out. I said, well, that doesn't sound right to me because you may decide to not simply let them out, and that would be a problem. And we had them write something up. So you need a termination clause in your contract. And the other thing is you're going to have to negotiate your fees because everything's negotiable. And if an agent is going, now look, an agent can tell you no, but, let's have some conversations about it. Let's talk about it. Say, hey, you know what? If you're an educated consumer out there, you're going to say, yeah, with all this stuff going on right now, I'm interviewing agents, but I want to know, what do you charge and what do you do for it? Because it may be worth it. And a lot of times, we had this in our meeting today. We talked about listing agents versus buyer agents. And buyer agents, they work very hard. They drive people around sometimes. If their buyer doesn't go to the open house by themselves and just tell the buyer's agent to please write it up for me. I found it myself. I went to the open house myself. My gosh, you haven't even gone to it, but that's all right. If you just sign do a contract for me, facilitate a contract. And then you get a home inspection and they go, well, if you ask for that, you're not going to get the house. So I know a lot of these buyer agents aren't all like that, but a lot of people have experienced that. But I'm going to tell you that if you're a listing agent or you're looking to sell your house, you need to ask the listing agent, what are you going to do for me? Are you going to have open houses? You're going to have brokers opens, where you invite all the local offices and have a little luncheon for them or dinner. I put on, musicals where, we have cellist or pianist or whatever come and we serve, white glove, hors d'oeuvres in a lot of our, my brokers opens. And we spend money. Brochures, things like that, tours. So ask them, what are they doing for their money? Because, you may get somebody that is an a la carte, whatever, and they're just going to, do the bare minimum. So you may need more from that, especially as the market shifts, which I'm going to show you. Do we have any questions on that, Joe? Let's just kind of stop right there. We're going to get off of this subject. Do we see anything? Anybody have any questions, buyers, sellers? Be careful who you're hiring, guys. I know that upsets a lot of people. Agents, legitimize your business. No more porch meetings. You think about it. One of the things I used to say to my agents when we first opened up, because a lot of agents are preyed on. You get these predators. They look at pictures on the internet of this agent or that agent. You get perpetrators that break into houses. They open up windows. They open up doors. They come back after the agent needs that. You have to be careful. And for your client, you have to be careful. And so what I used to always tell my agents, I would say, hey, look, when you sit down, if you go to an apartment complex and you go to look for an apartment, what does that, person do, that property manager or salesperson do? When leasing agent, what do they do when you walk in? They get an ID and they look at the ID and they put it on the desk and then they go and show you, but at least they have your ID. We would let these people in houses. We don't know who they are. We don't have their IDs. I mean, they could be whatever. And yet these agents do it time and time and time again. And I used to tell my agents and they still didn't do it. They'll take a picture of their ID, say, all right, guys, we're meeting here at Starbucks now. The first step here is give me your IDs. I'm going to take, my broker has a policy. We take pictures of these IDs. I send them to him so he knows who I'm out with. It happened for, I would have these in our meetings. I'd get one or two of them and then never see them again. And, and we go over and over it again. But the bottom line is we should know who's going in our clients' houses for our own safety and our own well-being. So you have to be careful, with that. And the other thing I'm going to say is, if you're an agent, you better legitimize. I said legitimize your business, but you better have your value add proposition. You better be able to tell people what you're good at, what you're going to do that nobody else does, why they should hire you, other than, let's go look at a house. All right, here we go. Allie, are buyers agents really on your side though? Aren't they invested in you buying? So, yeah, it's a commission-based job. You don't sell anything, you don't get paid, right? But you can sniff it out. I had a buyer fired their agent and signed up with me, and several of them. I mean, go to our Google reviews and you can see, go to Sachs Realty's, our Cockeysville location is where most of what I have, and read some of the reviews if you want. I'm not patting myself on the back. These are facts. These are real people. I had a buyer that said to me, Todd, my prior agent, every house was so perfect. Every house we looked at, oh, this is perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. You can smell the bullshit. I mean, come on. You should be interviewing people, asking critical questions, just like hiring for a job. You should be saying to them, look, what are you going to do when you're frustrated? How do you handle frustration when me as a buyer, I don't find anything that really does it for me? Well, how do you respond to that? Well, come on, it's not 40 houses. You can find out from them how they respond. Get some recommendations, get some referrals, ask people. You know what? People say, well, they're only going to give you the good referrals. Let me tell you something. People are honest. I have had people give me referrals that I have called them, and they said, look, I got to be honest with you. I don't know why they gave me as a referral, because this person was this way, or whatever, right? But you want somebody that's going to put you in front of their own paycheck or commission. I said this before, and I really upset a lot of people. I'm going to say it again. And there are a lot of people that are young people that are out there, and they're in this business, and they're good, and this offends them because they just started out. Everybody has their first day on the job. Everybody starts somewhere. I think there should be an apprenticeship program, just like in the trades. If someone is brand new, they should be on a teamed up, have a manager that's working side by side with them. It's not the way it works. But I always say, if I'm going to buy a house, I want an agent that owns one. And this really gets people, because they're like, how dare you say that? Because, I don't own a house, because I can't afford it, because blah, 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 blah. That's fine for the person that has bought before. But what about the first-time buyers? You want to be miserable together? They haven't gotten a house yet, and you're trusting them to sell you your first house. They don't know what the costs are. They heard about it. Maybe they read an article about it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. We have to, this is the largest purchase anyone shouldn't just be able to get in this business. There should be a process that is much broader and harder than what it is right now. I'm not going to say it, but that's the way I believe. So, when we're looking at, and with that, and this is why I'm answering this, Allie, is because if someone's broke, living paycheck to paycheck or commission to commission check, they are going to probably put their financial pressures ahead of you. And that's dangerous. So when you're looking at somebody to help you buy a house, are they financially stable? If they don't own a house, okay, so you want to hire them anyway. It's your first time buying. You don't care. You're going to bring somebody that has owned a house, which is possible. What are they, I hate to say it, how are they dressed? What are they driving? Is their car filled with, McDonald's containers? I mean, how do they respect things? I'm looking at these things from a professional because I want to know, man, you're not just, you got your act together. I think we'll take a couple more questions, but I you know what? I feel it. I feel the comments coming, but let's talk about, I want to talk about some seller fraud out there. So we had a situation and recently where we had somebody that was saying that they were a seller of a property. And we went through and, even have an ID and, signed agreements. And then we found out that they weren't maybe the seller, that someone else stepped up and said, I'm the seller and this place isn't for sale, or the owner of the property. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened to us that we've seen. We've heard about things like this. We've heard about people hacking emails and telling people that the wiring instructions have changed. We've seen where people have wired $250,000 even in one time to an offshore bank account. They were lucky they got everything but $25,000 back because apparently there's some rule or law regulation where in the first 24 hours, a person that gets a transfer into their account, the maximum they can withdraw in 24 hours is $25,000, and the agent, or the buyer, got everything of their $250 back except for $25,000. They were never so happy to only lose $25,000. But we've also seen, I know of a story of a title company where a police officer and his family, they were buying a house and same thing, the email was hacked and, they wired their down payment money that they had saved forever to an offshore account and they lost it all. And what happened was they couldn't buy their house, and that seller had already packed up. I mean, this is right before closing. This is the day before closing. That seller had already boxed up their house. It was on a tractor trailer truck rolling down to another state. They were buying another house where those people had moved out, and the chain reaction that it caused was so traumatic and so drastic that we have to be careful about these things. But I'm just going to caution people out there right now that there's a lot of bad cyber stuff happening. And if somebody tells you they have a property for sale and can't meet you, to discuss it because they're out of state or out of the country or whatever, we may have to add in some additional layers in there of showing that this person claiming to be the seller is actually the seller. Let's talk about mortgage rates. Joe, maybe you can pull up Google on mortgage rates. We're seeing a lot of people that are saying, and I mentioned this earlier when we opened up, that, people are saying, oh, mortgage rates have dropped to lows we haven't seen in 18 months or whatever. And they're, really, kind of pushing this narrative. There really hasn't been a whole lot of change. The mortgage rate drop has been ever so much, really insignificant. Here is, on Google, 20% down in Maryland with a 700 to 719 credit score, 30-year fixed mortgage on $300,000 on average is 7.388%. I don't call that great or the lowest that we've seen. I call that incidental. Watch what you're hearing out there. I'm going to show you here in a second the MLS, what's happening with price reductions and days on the market. But I just want you to, to know if you're out there buying, I think you're coming into a better time. Again, this may, upset agents out there, but I think if I were a buyer and I don't have to buy right now, I'd probably wait and see how the next couple of months play out. Terrible for commission-based business for somebody like me to say that, but I'm just being honest. We are seeing prices come down and inventory go up. You may have a little bit higher selection. 82%, it was said, of recent home buyers say they regret their purchase, and 44% said they had to take out additional debt to maintain their standard of living. And this is really a tragic occurrence in our industry, where we are strapping, homeowners to ridiculously high, living expenses. And we're seeing where delinquencies are showing up. We're seeing where foreclosures are becoming more of a thing. We're seeing people moving out of their houses and giving up. If you bought a house in 2019, between 2019 and 2023, not even counting this year, which I think went up another 6% on average nationwide, which would make it about 31% difference on property taxes from 2019 to 2024. They're expecting that to go up even more. And as properties are selling, you take a property that was valued, or assessed, and, the owner has owned it for 20 years, their tax bill is so low. And a lot of people think it's going to stay that way. When you're looking on Zillow or Realtor.com, or you're looking on public record and you look at taxes and you say, well, it's a low tax bill, I can afford that. And then you don't realize that you're going to get assessed when you buy that based on the purchase price of the house. So there's going to be a major change in that. But for many people across the country, and if on just a normal size house across America, a lot of this is equating to like another $200 a month in taxes that that borrowers are beyond what they've already been qualified for at the top of their market. And then that's not counting insurance. Property insurance has gone up about 60% since the same time period, 2019 to 2023. So again, if you're adding in another year to 24, a lot of this data is lagging. That could mean another, $150 a month more. So, I mean, people paying $350, $400 a month on a modest home, on a mortgage payment that they weren't prepared to spend more money on. And then that's not counting HOA fees. We're seeing HOA fees in a lot of cases double. Where, you get in and the biggest, what we see, and I've been in this business for a long time, guys, home builders are notorious for pricing HOA fees from a developer, aspect at a very low price. What happens when the builder gets out of the community, the HOA says, we can't manage this place on these spec'd in HOA fees, and they instantly raise them. So a lot of people are buying new homes and they're buying into HOAs, and 2 or 3 years after they own it, their HOA fees have doubled, in some cases tripled. So we have to be, mindful. This is one of the reasons why 82% of the people that have bought since 2019 have said that in a lot of ways they regret their purchase. And when I'm talking to buyers, that's why I'm telling you, don't just jump at something, because the biggest remorse is that people were pushed because of the limited inventory to houses that they would have never bought if they had a choice. And if you're a buyer and that's you, you may comment in this section and say, that's right. It wasn't a lot that you liked. It wasn't the neighborhood that you preferred. It wasn't even the kind of house that you like. You think it's ugly. It's got all kinds of problems. We had a roofing guy that came to our sales meeting this morning. We have people that have come periodically and talk to the agents and try and give them good advice on how to, well, his thing was, how do you look at a roof and know whether it's at the end of life? And a lot of agents don't even know, and I'm not expecting them to be inspectors, but my gosh, if we're going to look at something that could cost you $40,000 when you buy it to replace, especially if you get into rotten wood and stuff like that, and you're waiving your inspection, these people are screwed. So when we're talking about a lot of these buyers since 2020 have had to get other loans in order to maintain the house. Heating system stopped. It was $20,000, $25,000. They didn't have it. Now it's on a 30% credit card. There's an article out, and we'll pull it up here, on realestatenews.com. Joe, if we could pull that up. It's talking about buyers backing out. Redfin had published a report, and I don't like giving Redfin a lot of credit. I don't like giving anybody a lot of credit. I think the data is manipulated. I certainly don't like giving Zillow a lot of credit. I think, for the most part, we have to take a lot of what we hear and see with a grain of salt because it's backward-looking data, but let's just, roll with it because I do believe, some of this. But anyway, this article, realestatenews.com, published on July 24, says buyers are backing out of deals in record numbers as the market shifts. And the highlights here of the article, Redfin reported this week that home contract cancellations are back on the rise and hit the highest level for any June on record. I think they said it was 56,000 contracts. We'll dive in a little bit. The monthly costs associated with buying a home today are just too high and too rationalized, not getting everything on the must-have list, one agent said. Uptick in cancellations came as more homes sit on the market for longer. Says buyers are getting more selective. Well, it's about time. Says that home contract cancellations were most prevalent in Florida, particularly in Orlando, where 900 deals were dropped. This is just June, followed by, I don't know how many deals were done in June in Orlando, but geez, it can't be, that has to be a big number. Followed by Jacksonville and Tampa. Roughly 20% of the home purchase contracts in Las Vegas and San Antonio were also canceled. 1 in 5. Imagine if you're the seller on that. You're 1 in 5 and you go, man, my home just went, my contract fell through. Now I have to explain that to a new buyer that wants to know why did it fall through. I want to pull up another article here real quick on the Denver Post. What's that? You guys know how tech savvy I am. I don't know. Huh? What? Oh, you have it up. All right. Jeez. All right, here we go. This is a Denver Post. This is a new article. We're not going to read everything I have highlighted here, but I just want you to get the gist of this. High cost of housing, 2024 bringing record evictions. Tens of millions of dollars in rental assistance hasn't stopped the crisis. This woman who's being evicted, they interview, she said, every 5 seconds, I'm just like, Lord, please help me. She said, the stress alone is more than I can handle, not sleeping. She's talking about waiting for the sheriff to come up and throw her out on the street. Less than a year after Denver set a record for eviction filings, Colorado's most populous city is on pace to shatter that mark in 2024. Tens of millions of dollars in rental assistance from city and state policymakers have helped thousands of Coloradans stay housed this year, but it hasn't been enough to stop eviction crisis untethered from long gone pandemic era protections and fueled by high rents. Now firmly into its second year, the crisis shows no signs of abating. Here we go. It benefited more than 3,500 households in June. 30 million emergency rental assistance. Guys, this is really depressing, especially when you see the homeless population that we have that's growing in the country. It's really bad. Here we are, years after the lockdowns and all the billions of dollars in stimulus, and we have an epidemic going on where people can't afford housing. It's the worst ever post World War II. So when we talk about, the housing market, and how prices are going to come down, that's only because, guys, people are tapped out. They can't make ends meet. It's catching up. All right. We have people that are now losing their house that they just bought 4 years ago. We had people 2 years ago trying to sell their house and come out without needing to bring a check to the settlement table. It's happening. 82% of people are saying they regret buying a house from 2020. That is a big number. All right, let's take a look at what's happening in the local market, and then we'll open it up and see if we can answer some questions and comments. Joe, you want to pull this up? All right, so I'm giving you the back end here. Let me just refresh this, make sure I'm still logged in. So I am showing, what? I can't hear you. Oh, you want me to move the mic? All right, there we go. All right. Man, you guys got every ounce of me today. We started out this morning. I started my day at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're on the East Coast. It is 9 o'clock at night. And the sales meeting this morning rolling through the day, but we are giving it to you guys. What I've put in here are you're looking at the back end. So get your glasses out if you're like me and you need some glasses on, because we're going to look at some of these houses. We're going to go over some of this data, and I'm going to show you how it's falling apart. This is real live actives in Baltimore County, $250,000 up to $1 million. Now, I could show you houses that are worth $50,000 or $70,000. If there's any, they're not worth living in, and you're not going to buy them unless you're a real estate investor. So we're just going to go from $250,000, and I'm going to go through a couple counties here. There are 25 listings. If this is the first time you've watched along while I did this, there are 25 listings per page. A green arrow, in this case, is bad for sellers and good for buyers. A red arrow is the exact opposite. Well, it could be bad for sellers too, because they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and a lot of it's new construction, but this is how the market's manipulated. So when I tell you guys, when they come out and say, well, the housing market is going up, well, it's gone up 3% since 2023, the median home price, well, how do they come up with that information? This is the real information. So when we're looking at this, I think 9 houses with a down arrow on a page is about 36%, if my math is correct. So we can look here, 3, 6, 7, 8. It gets worse. The biggest thing that I want you to look at as we're going through here, and I kind of manipulated these columns to pull it together, but we're looking at the price that is going up. It's ascending. And we're looking at the original list price. So when we look at this one, for instance, $275,000 on Elms Avenue, it has gone down $25,000. And the other thing we're going to look at has been on the market for 83 days. So as we're going through this list, we're going to cruise along. We're not going to dwell on it. Here, look at this one, $265,000. It started at $450,000. It has been on the market, guys, for 438 days. So when we're looking at the days on market in this case, what does that mean? Why is it 338 and 438? Well, the reason is because, and we see this in the back end, is that this house was listed with a different MLS number. And a lot of agents will play a game. They'll think that a lot of agents don't even pick it up, or they don't advise their client, hey, this thing's been on the market 100 days longer than what it says, because unless it's sat off the market long enough to reset, when you get, different numbers in this, column, it means that it had a new MLS number, and that's how long it's been on now since the new MLS number, 338 days. All right, but I want you to look at these numbers. Look at these days on the market as it goes up, and we're just going to cruise through here, and we're going to look at these different pages. Now, look at this page. We're almost at 300,000, here. Look at these arrows. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 25 price reductions. Well, I wanted to show you something. Man, I want to look at this Willgate. This one has an up arrow. And you would think like 249,000, it's been on the market for over a month. Why'd they raise the price to 252,990? Let's click on it and check it out. I know what it says. This one's in Owings Mills. Let's look at the remarks here. Agent remarks, freshly painted and power washed, guys. This house was power washed. Freshly painted and power washed. So I guess that's why they raised their price. If they weren't selling it at the original price, we'll paint it, we'll power wash it, we'll put it back on the market, and we'll see what happens from there. We got another one here, and they raised the price on this one too. So it's gone up. Let's see what these remarks say. Hey, seller will be replacing the roof with architectural shingles, the gutters, soffit, downspout, and fascia boards. The roof will have a transferable warranty. The seller's painted the basement and replaced the carpet. It's an end-unit townhouse. You have to look at these properties and see what's going on here, all right? This property was on the market for 17 days. I guess they just didn't prepare when they were putting it on the market, maybe? I don't know. But let's just cruise through. I want you to look at these areas, these arrows going down. These are all of the houses in Baltimore County that are available for sale. This number is rising. The days on the market is rising. You know, here we go, 221 days, 23 days with a new MLS number. It's up in price $10,000. They raised the price. Property was recently listed but removed from the market for remodeling. So in the case, guys, where the seller is raising the price because they're putting on a new roof, the question that I have with something like that is, would you buy a house that had a leaky roof? You know, a lot of it, when you look at it, when a seller is looking to sell a house, they can't necessarily just get more money for it because they fix something that should be expected when you buy a house. I just wanted to point that out. But let's continue. Look at this. This is from the 350. Well, let's see here. Something's not sorting right. All right, let's start again. Let's get back up there. All right. My sort was a little bit off. Back to where we were. Here we go. So we're 340 to 350. Look at all these price reductions. This is meat and potatoes here, guys. I mean, in our area in Baltimore County, I mean, this is a hot market. I don't know where you are in the country, but if you could get a single family house for $350,000, you know, it would probably be a good deal. Here, that's a hot spot for us here in Baltimore County, and you can just see what's happening here. These are probably new construction with price increases. That's new construction, so the builders are raising their prices. You know why? A lot of them are giving more concessions. So some of them are playing a game. We'll raise the price and we'll drop it and try and sell them in the sales office. So they're all new listings there. All right, you're getting my point, right? You guys are getting my point. You see, this is the real deal. This isn't the BS that you're hearing online. This is the real deal, real price reductions. 420, 389, 424, 394.9. Right? 424, 4099. We're seeing, you know, in a lot of cases, you know, some pretty hefty price reductions. But here's the key, guys. They're not selling. They're not selling. They're dropping the price and they're still not selling. Or we wouldn't be looking at them. These are active. If they dropped the price and the house was gone, because, I mean, certainly if they've been on the market for 45 days, there's been a dozen people that have gone through the house. So now all of a sudden, if you're a listing agent and you drop the price, somebody's going to say, hey, man, they just dropped the price on the house that we looked at 30 days ago. Should we put in an offer or jump on it? It's still not triggering the buy signal for these buyers in a lot of cases, which is telling you what? We're only hitting the beginning of this, right? When we're looking at this many price reductions, I promise you, 6 months ago, this was nowhere near the case. So when people are saying the home market's not going to crash, the prices never go down, the housing market only goes up, please stop. Wake up and look at what's happening here. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and advance all the way up here because I did put in $1 million. And look at this. Even they're dropping. Our higher priced homes. They're still sitting. Now, I just want to do something because I'm not going to dwell on this. I don't want to drive you nuts. But I am going to go into search criteria and I'm going to put in a different county here because you may be saying to me, well, Todd, that's Baltimore County. But what about when we get closer to D.C.? Or, in a higher end area? Let's just check out Anne Arundel County and do that same search here. All right. Look at this thing here. There we go. All right, so here we go. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll adjust these prices from high to low, but it's still the 250 to $1 million. There's 515 of these houses on the market in Anne Arundel County. Big market in Anne arundel County. A lot of D.C. commuters in Anne Arundel County. A lot of government employees. It's close to, Fort Meade. It's close to NSA. It's close to a lot of the, a lot of government jobs. And here we go. We're just going to continue to click through here and take a look at these arrows as we see price reductions. Look at this, 425, 375, 420, 379, 395, 385, 399, 385. Again, they're dropping the prices, try and test the water, see what's happening here, 433.9, 4099. Right? There's no hocus pocus here, guys. This is you're looking at it. Look at this page. 435 to 455. Look at all the down arrows, right? So what does that tell us here? It says, look at this page. If you're a seller and you need to sell, you better be having a serious conversation with your agent and say, look, unless you don't need to sell, you better be saying something here where you're going, man, I don't know. The market's falling apart. The prices are coming down. More houses are for sale in my neighborhood. What do I need to do? Well, let's just wait another 3 or 4 months or wait till the end of the year and see what you're in. Here's the deal, guys. This should mean like a lot of positivity for you buyers that have been sitting on the sideline, because here, we're not seeing investors flood the market right now. So these prices are still higher. You have multiple layers of buyers, right? You have investors are going to buy at the absolute bottom of the barrel as cheap as they can because they're buying cash flow. Then, obviously, you have the next phase, or the retail buyers, the people that want to live in it. So when we're looking at houses that have been on the market for 150 days, if you have some imagination, and that checks a lot of the boxes, the lot's good, house is good, I would be going through there and I would probably be negotiating pretty hard, because if the arrow's going down, it's going in the right direction and it's going to give you the advantage. If it's been sitting on the market for 114 days and you're competent and capable, you may be able to just get in there and get it done. Now, people say to me all the time, but Todd, when do we time the bottom of the market? Right? I mean, you can wait. If I was a buyer right now in the market, I'd probably wait it out a little bit unless I really saw something that I liked and it checked my boxes and I could get in there and look at it, negotiate a good deal because the seller needs to sell. But there's a lot of ifs there. And, but I do say is, how do you time the market? Well, real estate's a very slow moving process. It's not going to go up $50, $60, $100,000 overnight. So you could start to see, if you have a good agent that's going to be pulling these numbers for you and telling you whether the trend is going down or whether the trend is stabilized or going up, they're going to be good indications that maybe you've hit that market bottom at one point or another. I can't sit here and tell you that home prices are going to fall 50% or 70%, though I do think that if they fell 50%, we'd only be back to 2019 prices. If they fell 70%, we'd be back to 2012 prices. So when people are saying, when I'm interviewing like Harry Dent and, some of these other, what you call crazy people that are predicting that we are in for one of the worst financial resets that we've seen since the Great Depression. I've got a great video that's coming out this week on Saturday. It's a treat. I'm going to just tease you with that. But it's a great video, 9:30 Eastern time this Saturday. It's an eye-opener. But when I'm interviewing a lot of these economists and, people are like, well, you're just interviewing these doomsayers or whatever, man, they bring the data. I mean, some of what we're seeing right now is the worst times we've ever seen. It's the worst affordability. I saw it online. They were ranking countries to their wealth, to the wealthiest countries, the people living in there that amassed the most amount of wealth or had the easiest burden of, least burden of cost of living. And the United States ranked like 9. And a lot of people think, well, we're a rich country. But what you had to look at this chart, how they were rating it, was that, yeah, we were a wealthy country, but the amount of hours that we have to work to afford the cost of living dropped us so far down in the list, of countries that, now, I mean, there's lots of countries, but my point is that we are very unaffordable right now. And the other thing is we are trained. It's like the worst thing in the world from birth. The U.S. somewhere, everyone in the world depends on our spending. We live to spend money. It's the most idiotic thing if you really think about it. If we have a revelation and say this is really dumb, we work our fingers to the bone to have all these things that don't mean anything. You have a fancy car that you drive 12 miles a day. And it's stupid. You take it to get service, to get brakes, to get this is $5,000-$6,000. How many hours do you have to work for that? Right? So when we're looking at this, millennials are seeing, hey, homeownership's not even achievable, and I have all this debt, and my credit card's not going down, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is bad, right? But what we don't realize, we're watching Instagram, and every 5 minutes, something's popping up in your face that you have to buy a new outfit. How about just wearing the same Sachs Realty shirt until it falls apart? We have to be smart. We're laughed at by a lot. Like, oh, you're American. You got this. You got to have everything. You spend. We are trained at birth to spend money. We are consumers. Well, guess what? When we can't consume anymore, it's going to screw a lot of people that depend on our buying. And right now, people are stopping their spending because they don't have it. They're going, man, I got $1,000 in my bank account. I met buyers today. They want to buy a house. They're renting. And I said, well, how much cash do they have? And he goes, $1,000. These are 2 working professionals, guys. 2 working professionals. They got $1,000 in their bank account. Is that good? No, I don't think so. When we're looking at these things, we have to be mindful of where we're headed right now. Highest credit card debt, highest auto defaults in debt, highest, we're spending at least 35-40% on our housing expenses. God forbid anything goes wrong, anybody loses a job, anything breaks. We have to wake up. We have to wake up, and we have to wake up now. Because if we don't start saving money and we don't start curbing our spending and we don't start getting a control on the subscriptions that we have, we're going to really be screwed, right? We're going to be looking at some of the biggest bankruptcies we've ever seen in American history. And it would not take much to put us into a Great Depression. You may not believe that. All right, let's answer some questions. Why not mandate a fee to cover all the above? Man, this is so far back. Why not mandate a fee to cover all the above, a flat fee? Let's check out the poll. Let's see where we are with this, because this is telling us the story of what you guys think out there. What I got to do, take that off, I guess. Whoops, I'll put it back on. All right. You guys see, I'm very technically challenged. Are you buyers ready to pay your own agent's commission? Commission changes start August 17th. Wow, 49% still say no out of almost 1,000 votes. It's pretty consistent. 17% say they won't pay a buyer's agent, and 15% say they won't hire a buyer's agent. Well, for you guys, we got some courses coming out for you, because we're actually going to publish some courses. We have an amazing broker network all over the country. We get really bogged down with the amount of inquiries that we get here of people that are looking for good agents. Still send me an email. We'll try and match you up with somebody that, it's not very easy to find agents that I trust to give my viewers, but I do the best I can. We have an amazing broker network. You can go to SachsRealty.com if you're nowhere you're not in Maryland. But we are coming up with courses. They're going to tell you that, hey, if you want to buy a house or you want to sell a house and you don't want to use an agent, here's what you have to do. I don't recommend it, but I'm going to give you the course. I'm going to let you take the course and, hopefully be able to save you some critical mistakes along the way. And I said to a buyer, my audience reached out a couple of weeks ago, and they said, look, I've been following you for a long time. And, I'm very frustrated. I've hired agents before, and I don't want a buyer's agent. I want to do this on my own. So, I went through the process. Well, where are you looking? And I do this. If people reach out, I try and answer people. It takes me a couple weeks sometimes. But, what's your price point? Well, let's look at the competition in that price point and see, what is, and then I say, well, how many houses do you think you would look at before you would make a decision? And this person said, well, probably 20, 25 houses. Which, if you think about it, most agents would cringe at that, but that's not, if I was looking for a house, I might look at 25 houses before I decide something, that is really going to fit my need and that I like, that I want to move forward with. And again, agents are cringing, like, don't tell people that they can look at 25 houses. I don't want to drive them around and look at 25 houses, but it's not uncommon. So what I said was, look, you don't want to have a buyer's agent. Okay. Can you imagine dealing with 20 sellers agents and none of them represent you? Can you imagine that? Like calling them up, trying to get a hold of them, scheduling a time to go look at it, trying to line them all up because you got a night off or a Saturday and you want to see 4 or 5 houses. And you're like, my gosh, this is like a nightmare. Well, I got one at this appointment time. I have one 3 or 4 hours later. What am I going to do until then? And then you're going to go in there and they're going to, tell you whatever. They're not going to look at things the way that an agent representing you should. So, I'm not saying that you should go on this thing by your own, but we're going to have the courses. If you want to learn, we're going to teach you. Is there Sachs Realty merch? There is. Thanks for asking. You can go to SachsRealty.shop. It's interesting because I've been talking to Google. It was funny because, I don't know, all of a sudden I got an email from a Google representative that said, hey, look, we're part of your creator support, and we're going to set up a phone call for you guys. I'm like, man, that is wonderful. I would love to talk to somebody at YouTube or Google that could help me, because we used to have our merchandise underneath all of our videos, but Google decided that they said that I was misrepresenting. That that they said that I didn't have the right country selected, and certainly when I look at all the things, it says the United States, and of course I have a Shopify and we have merchandise, and I cannot for the life of me get that thing back up. Nobody can help me. Every time I talk to somebody, I don't think they can understand me, and or maybe whatever the case is, but. We do have merchandise. We have these cool shirts. We have keychains, water bottles, hats, things like that. We'll be adding to it, as the fall gear comes online. They're really cool shirts too. We have sold a bunch of them, and people love them. And it's funny because we have people that use them at the gym. It's that like athletic fabric. So yes, thanks for asking. All right, what else we got? How are we doing on time? We're still good. We could take a couple callers too, Joe, if you want to pop up the link. Todd, can you provide a list of questions to ask when interviewing agents? Yes, send me an email. I have a list I can send you. We are working on a whole, guys, this is pretty exciting. One of the things that we're trying to figure, I'm trying to realize, like, what is my purpose here? Because I have to decide. I'm like on the, I'm on the back nine, with my career, and I'm thinking, how can I best serve and help people? And one of the ways that we're going to do it is, and have the biggest reach, I could either spread Sachs Realty nationwide and pull all of my hair out and hate my life every day because I have to deal with agents, more agents and more agents and more agents, which I really don't want to do. Or we can kind of, align ourselves with agents across the country and send them and interview them and send them the business. And help our audience. But one of the things that we're doing is working on this whole library of data and forms that you will be able to go on. It's an education site that we're working on. We're building out. Really excited about it. You will be able to print out questionnaires, how to interview agents, what questions to ask them in a listing appointment. I can give it to you now. If you send me an email, I'll be glad to give it to you. You have to kind of cater it to you, but a lot of what we're going to give you is questions that you're not comfortable asking. You're almost afraid. It's like, it's a critical question, like how much is this going to cost me, but you just avoid it. I have a little story to go along with that. So yesterday, I drive a truck, and for the first time ever, I mean, you guys, I've been a contractor for 35 years. The first time I have a gas truck. I drive diesel trucks. Well, I bought this truck in 2020, and it's a Dodge. And man, this thing's been it's been a letdown. It has one of those push button things that have left me sitting in my own driveway. I couldn't even start the daggone thing until it decided to start. But it has less than 20,000 miles on it. The water pump goes out. And so I'm like, I'm seeing antifreeze coming out of the truck, and I'm like, this is bad. So I called up the dealership and I said, hey, look, I want to bring this truck in. I know it's not in warranty because it's a 2020. I bought it brand new. It's out of the 3-year, even though it hasn't reached the mileage. So I pull in, and the garage door's open. There's a green arrow. There's 2 bays. One has an X. The garage door's down. The other one on the right has a green light. The garage door's up. And I go to pull in, and I'm looking at the guy, the attendant right there, and nobody's saying anything to me. And I pull in, and this garage door comes down, and it hits the roof of, not the hood, but the roof of my truck. I didn't know. It rips the running lights off the truck. It dents the whole truck in. The garage door shatters. Big glass panels come crashing down on my truck. And I got out, and I was like stunned. It's like one of those things, like, we needed to have a conversation, but nobody was having it. That's what I'm talking about. You should be asking questions, but you're not comfortable. Like, who the hell's going to pay for this? Right? So when we're interviewing people, because they're our friends, because they're our mom's friend or our dad's friend or our high school friend, we don't want to interview an agent the way that we should because we're afraid that we're going to offend them. And then we're upset when it goes bad. So by having these forms, you're going to be able to say, I don't want to ask this question, but man, that guy, Todd Sachs, of Sachs Realty, had it on his website, and he suggested I should ask it. So please forgive me. Please forgive me. But I got to ask this. Do you own a house? These are going to be the critical questions, and I'm not telling you that you shouldn't hire them, but you need to ask these questions, because the next question would be, well, how do you know what to look for? Now, the writing may seem like it's on the wall. Well, we're going to hire an inspector. Well, what if he's bad? Who picks the inspector? Who is it? Who do you work with? Does he have a website? Do they have a website? I'm going to call them up. I'm going to get a recommendation. So these are things that we are going to step you through the entire process of understanding what you should be asking, what you should be doing, and this is going to coincide with these courses that we have. You'll be able to a la carte them. They're going to be affordable. I promise you. They're going to be things that there is going to be a charge. They're not free. The best things are not free. I'm sorry. You've got hours and hours and years of data that we've put, videos that we've put up on our YouTube channel, but we're going to help you. And this is valuable information. I can't talk with you each one-on-one, but I can share with you the knowledge that I've had and the pitfalls and what you should be doing. The same thing I would give an agent if I'm training an agent. But it's one of the reasons why we're not a big brokerage, because half of them I can't stand. They don't want to learn. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I have been in business for 35 years. All right, here we go. Pizza and real estate. Phil Simonetta. What's going on, Phil? Here in Florida, just one MLS stellar. There has been 11,000 new listings and 13,000 price drops in the last 7 days. Wow. 3,000 deals canceled in the same last 7 days. We got a couple videos with Phil. If you haven't seen him, you should check him out. He talks about it. He's like me, man. We just kind of give the data. It's amazing because I tell people that the housing market is coming down, and I have more sellers call me to list their houses. And people would think, well, they're never going to call you, Todd, because you're saying that home prices are coming down. Why the heck would why would I call you to sell my house? They do. And we still get them top dollar because we're good at what we do. But, yeah. All right, let's see what else we got. We got any callers? You guys want to come on? Somebody wants to talk about their story, ask a question live. Joe has published a link with this new law, devalue home prices. Let me tell you what I think is going to devalue home prices more than anything else. And I don't think this ruling is going to devalue home prices. It's going to put a lot of agents out of business because they don't get it. They don't know how to sell their worth. They don't have legitimized businesses. And for a lot of these agents, they shouldn't even be in the business, and you shouldn't be hiring them. So I think that, it's going to do a lot for our business. The cream is going to rise to the top, and we're going to see people that are either going to want good service or they're not. Now, I know a lot of people that have financial advisors, and they wouldn't trade them for anything in the world, even though they can open up a TD Ameritrade and trade for just about free, right? But they still have professionals that do their trades for them because they deliver the results that they need and that they want on a consistent basis. Most people lose when they act out on their own. It has been a proven fact that for sale by owners make less money on their house than what they do despite paying commissions. In a lot of cases, a good agent does pay for themselves. But you're going to have to make that decision on yourself. I don't think it's going to devalue home prices. I think what's going to devalue home prices is the fact that inflation is so bad and that the cost of doing business is so high. And, and the efficiency of employees is off the chart. It's the worst it's ever been. So most employees don't make it may make you mad, but it's a fact. If you look at the amount of production that an employee does in the course of a day because of the distractions that they go through, a business's largest cost and why robotics and AI is going to eliminate jobs is because it's the biggest cost for any employer to get something done. Now, we take that and we go, okay, what's going to hurt home prices the most? The fact that nobody knows how to fix anything, and you're going to have to pay a lot of money to get something fixed because there's going to be a limited amount of qualified people that can do the job. And so your roofing repairs are going to stay high. Your HVAC repairs are going to stay high. Your plumbing repairs are going to stay high. I'm not talking about new construction. I'm talking about things that you got to fix because you got a leak. The house roof is going in, it's caving in, it's leaking water. You're going to let it continue to leak? You're going to put a bucket under there for the next 6 months? No. Not if you can afford to fix it. You will if you can't afford it and you're losing your house. These costs are going to be so high, and they're going to get higher every day. And that's going to drive the prices down because houses fall apart. And a house is a depreciating asset. It is not an appreciating asset. People argue with me on that. They say it's not true. Oh, yeah? Well, how are real estate investors able to deduct the depreciation of the house? How are they able to do that? Well, they can do it because the house falls apart. And eventually, you got to go in and fix it. So as these sellers are living in the houses, whether it's limited inventory or not, but the house needs repairs. And a buyer comes in and they're like, man, I don't like this kitchen. I don't like the roof is getting ready. The HVAC system's at the end of life. What's going to drive those home prices down is the repairs to get that house to a point to where a buyer is interested in it. You're either going to have to replace things and fix things, which is going to lower your bottom line, lower your price, take your equity out of your house because you weren't doing it. You've been deferring the maintenance on the house, or the buyer, if they can get a loan on it, are going to offer you such a low price that they can expense these high cost of repairs. That's what's going to take houses down the most. People are like, oh, the interest rates are going to drop and the housing market's going to be fine and we're going to have a rebound. No. Taxes, insurance, HOAs, repair costs are going to drive home prices down. That's the way I see it. Being in the construction business for a long time, that's the way I see it. I know what it costs to fix something. And just to renovate a bathroom could be $20,000, $25,000 to bring up a bathroom. Or you're looking at green tile or pink tile, and maybe it's in, but it wasn't not in 60 years old. So when we're looking at those, kitchens and bathrooms and things like that, they're game changers for these sellers. So I think that's going to be the number one, I think that's going to be the number one thing that's going to bring the cost of ownership is in itself going to bring these prices down, because even if we dropped interest rates 2%, 2 percentage points, we went from 7 3/4 to 5 3/4. It's still not enough with the inflation. With the inflation, the lack of wage growth that we've had in America since the 1970s. We saw the biggest spike in wage growth during the pandemic, boom, because employers were desperate, but their numbers suck right now. When these earning reports come out, and they're going to start reporting these things on the stock market, they're going to have to make these shareholders happy, and they're going to do it by getting rid of people and their jobs. That's what happens in a recession. And if you think that we're going to go through the next 18 months without one, I don't know how. It's never been done before. When you have the inversion of the yield curve and, you look at that, economists are looking at it and are like, man, this doesn't even make sense. The only reason is because they continue to print money or come up with these stimulus programs that just somebody eventually has to pay for it. They're wearing out. We just saw in Denver that people are being evicted at record scale. This is after billions of dollars in aid, eviction moratoriums for years, right? It's catching up, guys. We may not like to think it. I don't like talking about this stuff. People say, well, when the economy changes, are you still going to be talking about bad stuff? I hope not. I'm just trying to warn everybody. I'm just trying to wake you up. You think that, you think I'm off track. I think you're off track. I think that you have your head buried in the sand and you keep doom spending and you're spending all your money like it's no tomorrow. This is not how it works. You may think it does, but it's not. And eventually, it's going to catch up. And it's happening now. So I think at the bottom, the end result, we're going to come out of this and we're going to have some kind of financial reset. But I think, when I'm talking about a housing market crash, I still think it's coming. We're seeing it in living color. I know we got Jacob here. Let's bring him in. Jacob, how are you?
Hey, Todd, how's it going? I was on your show a few months back.
Wait a minute. Oh, no, it's not me. It's. I need some headphones. Was able to get away without having headphones on. How are you, Jacob?
Hey, Todd, how's it going? I was on your show a few months back.
I do.
Was the discussion then as I was sitting out the market? I think Phil was on your show that night. Hey, Phil, I know you're watching.
So where are you from, Jacob? Remind me. What part of town do you live in?
I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, yeah, you're right in Phil's backyard.
Yeah. I'm still sitting the market out and renting and everything, but I had some questions. The longer this goes on, the scarier it gets for me. And I have a good income. I'm not in debt. I could go buy a house tomorrow if I wanted to, but it's absolutely terrifying because the way interest rates and especially the property taxes and insurance is going here in Florida. It seems like no matter what, you're just renting a house at this point, because when does the ability for all these third party agencies stop to exist for the ability to keep raising these prices up on us, and I'm waiting for this the downturn in prices to come. The inventory spiked and been spiked for a while, but no one's coming off the prices at all. Do you have any insight on that as far as, is there any professional insight as when these prices are going to start dropping?
Well, what you need to do is you need to have someone like Phil start pulling, and maybe you're doing it, but you should be looking at the solds over the last 30 days. So, a lot of times when we're looking at list price, you don't know unless you're looking at the close prices whether these things have actually sold for less than what they were listed for. So, I would definitely have an agent like Phil. He's very good at that. Start sending you some reports in a specific area where you're looking and monitoring that. The other thing is that are you looking for something that you can put sweat equity into, or are you looking for something that's pretty turnkey?
There was a time when I was looking for the big house with the pool and everything else, but I think I'm looking for something small now. I'm scared of the big, large investment in the housing market anymore. I've owned 4 homes over my life. We were a military family, and we bought and sold and played the distant landlord game, and that was a nightmare every time. So, we moved to Florida, and we were going to buy, and prices started going up and going up. So we sat the market out, and probably should have bought on the way up. But now that everything's out of whack, I'm kind of glad we didn't buy at all, and we've just been renting and waiting things out. But, obviously we missed out on some equity, but still, you don't know how things would have went. So I'm not Monday. I'm not gonna, quarterback myself on Monday, but it just scares me, the fact that the property taxes and the insurance can go so high. I knew it was always a risk, and I'm not a young man. I'm knocking the door of 50, and I've been through some times in my life, but I had no idea these things, especially the insurance rates could go so high as they have now. And that scares me to get into a house in the future. What stops this from happening again? We saw 2007, 2008, 2009 happen, and I don't think we learned anything from that, the way things are going right now.
No. And, first I want to address, thank you for your service, and
Thank you.
appreciate, there's a lot of sacrifice that you've made just moving around and relocating. I have a military family I just helped that was here in Maryland for 2 years. They were hoping for 3 years. And their son is 10 years old and moved 9 times. So there's a lot of sacrifice that you make, serving us all. So I thank you for that. The other thing I want to address, which I hear a lot, is if I'd have bought back then, I would have so much more equity. We can't really look at that because, when I look at, it's easy to say that. And prices have gone up. If you look in a 2-year period of time, on average, home prices went up 40%. But again, the only way you get that equity, now, of course, it does affect how much you're paying every month, but the only way to really get the equity is to sell. Then you would have to sell the house. You'd have to live in it for 2 years. And then you could, as a married couple, if you're married, you can have $500,000 in price gain. Without tax implications. They've tried to attack that. If you're a single person, as long as you live in the house for 2 years, you can get $250,000 in profit, essentially as your primary residence, tax-free. And you're allowed to do that 2 years in a 2 times in a row. So you can live in a house for 2 years as your primary residence, sell it, profit, buy another house, live in it for 2 years, profit. And I'm not an accountant, but I know this is the way it is. And then what happens the third time you have to reset is 3 years. The next time and no one wants to move around this much, and it's a lot of risk, and it doesn't mean you're going to make profit. So, nobody has a crystal ball, but we have to have some kind of, inner feeling of when something doesn't feel right, or something is just not setting well with us. We have to listen to that, because there was certainly nothing wrong on what you're doing right now in renting. It doesn't mean you're never going to own again. It doesn't mean that you're not going to find something that you want. You may decide that you don't even want to be in Florida, and you may be in a situation that costs you $200,000 to get out. So, you never know. We don't know these things. What I always say, to people that are interested in buying is, what's your comfort level? What are your priorities? What is your comfort level? Are you looking for something that you can do sweat equity, that you can fix? Are you looking for something you're not going to have to spend money for 7 or 10 years? These are all important, critical questions that you have to ask yourself, because that's going to really predicate what you look for, right? And, I think if you're buying right now and you're in Florida, there's probably a lot of new construction. And if it's something that you're interested in new construction, I think we're about to see some really big deals happening on the, Ivy Zellman just came out. A friend of mine, Adam Taggart, just had Ivy Zellman on. And Ivy has been very bullish in the market. She called the 2008 housing market crash. I love the fact that she said that, we were in a population decline and that we're overbuilding our multifamily. And then she came out of left field and was talking about how we were going to be in a shortage of housing. We're not going to be in a shortage of housing. We're in a glut of housing. When we have more people owning 2 and 3 houses today, more than they ever have. We have more landlords that have doubled down in the last 5 years buying overpriced houses. They don't even know that they're in trouble yet. Maybe some of them do, maybe some of them don't. They are one bad tenant away from a disaster, right? So when we look at that, so we could see a flood of inventory hit the market. We have an Airbnb market where we're talking about, a lot of inventory, right? And people had no idea what it was like to be self-employed. They thought it was glamorous and it was glorious. They're realizing that not only are their neighbors ganging up against them, but that they spent a lot of money and they're not making a whole lot of money. They have some of the lowest income turnovers right now. Yeah, you can look at it and say, well, Airbnb is doing really well. Well, the company is, but how much are the hosts bringing in? They're barely
I noticed
making
a lot of the Airbnbs had went to more of a long term when I was looking for places to rent. And, it was almost attractive to me as a renter, but then it kind of turns me off because I don't know how long I'm going to be there, and then I have to I don't know if I'm going to be able to be there for 12 months and then someone else has it reserved after me, and then I got to move again. So there's some pitfalls to them even trying to do the long-term gig through that too, that I realized as a consumer of that market. So it kind of steered me away from that as a renter.
I think, and of course, I have no crystal ball. I've been calling this since April of 2022. People thought I was crazy. It's showing up in the marketplace right now. We're seeing days on the market sit, inventory explode. Phil just commented, in, was it Tampa? Where was it? I just read the thing. Maybe Joe can find the comment and pull it up here. But, I think that we're in a position right now where we're really going to have an idea as we go into the end of the year, the beginning of the spring. We're really going to have an idea. I don't think that you're missing out. If you're sitting on the sideline right now and you can rent, and you have a lease, maybe if it's coming up for renewal, somebody's listening, maybe you would say to your landlord, hey, look, I don't want to move out, but I want to go month to month, or I want some kind of termination clause in here where I can, pay 2 months of rent. I'm not stuck in for another year. If I decide that I want to move out, I'm going to leave your place in great shape. I'm a great tenant, blah, blah, blah. But I think if you're people that are coming up on lease renewals right now, I would be looking at ways to extend that in a flexible, as the landlord doesn't want to kick you out. I mean, they may push back a little bit on you by saying, no, if you got to move out if you don't sign a year lease. Look, I've been a landlord for 25 years.
Yeah, me too. I'll take that rent as long as you're paying it, baby.
Amen. Especially if you have a great tenant that's in there. I mean, why are you going to kick them out? So negotiate with your landlord if it's a mom and pop. Sometimes with the corporate landlords, you can't. But negotiate with your mom and pops. Take care of the house and keep watching the market, because I think what's going to happen from here to the end of the year, we're not going to see some major price increase. I don't see it. I see that what's going to happen is if we do get a break in interest rates, and that's not going to mean affordability. Look, in 2007, before the GFC, the Fed lowered the rates, mortgage rates went down. They started, in 2012 buying mortgage-backed securities. They, it basically manipulated the market, became the subprime lender, the government in mortgages. They were opening the door and, giving these loans to people at crazy low rates. But it still didn't work. We didn't have an explosion in 2012 and 2013. In 2007, when they dropped rates, it didn't miraculously. We had a crash that really hit the bottom in 2008, 2009. So just because the Fed comes out in September, and I just spoke with somebody who's going to air in a couple weeks, that he's an economist and macroeconomist, and he said that he thinks he's looking for half a percentage point from Powell in September. That's nothing. That's nothing. We're not going to have,
Right.
yeah, the market may respond. We may see a little bit of rally in the market before it crashes, but that's nothing. So, I don't think if you're sitting on the sideline right now and you're going, I'm going to wait this thing out until fall or December, and I'm going to see what's happening over the next 4 or 5 months. I'm going to get past the election. I'm going to see where this thing plays out. You may be able to save $20, $30, $50,000. So, that would be something that I think that you should consider. And if you can put yourself in that situation. So if you and Jacob and any other buyer that's listening right now, I think you have time. I think if you can stabilize where you live, I think you have some time on your side. I think you're going to get a better deal, and I think you're going to be able to negotiate, which is what we're seeing right now that, man, we have just not seen. I am so happy that buyers are actually getting inspections, that they're asking for things, that they're getting things repaired and getting things replaced. And your agent has to have the guts and the wherewithal of standing up for you and negotiating and just and be willing to say, I'll walk away. Be one of the 56,000 people when it comes to it that says, if I'm not comfortable with this thing, I'm out. Make sure you have an out in there with your inspections and with your contingencies to where you can walk away. Yeah, it might cost you $500, $600, $700 for a good inspector, to inspect a house, but it'd be the best money you spent. It's better than going on a weekend excursion when you're talking about buying the most expensive thing that you're going to be living in and dealing with for many years to come. There's Phil.
So, hey, Todd, I have one more question that I've really been trying to do some research on, but I'm not able to find a lot of info. Is, I see information about, I guess, investment groups and large corporate investment companies that own a lot of rentals are buying into apps that allows them to basically set the prices locally, and it ends up making higher prices, but empty inventory for them. Do you think there's ever going to be any kind of step in on that? I mean, I'm all for a free market, but it seems kind of shady, because in the end it is the rental market, but affects the overall inventory for buyers as well. Do you think there's any insight into that as far as government regulation possibly? Or
I certainly there has been proposals where they've said, hey, we need to limit the amount of corporate owned single family houses specifically. I mean, that's the biggest competition is for the single family housing market. The detached single family housing market,
right.
Not so much a condo or an apartment complex or things like that, because I mean, that's really where investors should be. That's where they have been prior to the GFC. We didn't see these corporate buyers until Obama, took office, and and look, and he was fed a mess. I'm not blaming Obama. People want to blame. I don't want to get into the political push game. I mean, they look. I think we got problems on both sides of the aisle, right? But in special interest groups that are there every step of the way. But when we bundled up these loans and shoved them off to Wall Street for pennies on the dollar, we didn't realize what was going to happen. And part of the agreement that they said to these investment groups was, look, you have to keep these houses for a minimum of 12 months. You have to. So the purpose was to deal with these, millions of foreclosures, and to get somebody to be cutting the grass and fixing them up. If you guys can remember, I mean, it was a mess. You drive down the road, they got board ups and grass was 3 feet tall, and it was a disaster. And if you live next to one of those properties, you know what I'm talking about. But what happened was Wall Street got the taste of nothing but appreciation. If you think about what happened from 2012 until 2019, it went straight up. And then especially as we get into these other years where we saw companies like Open Door, and now they're in some big trouble right now. But, we started, but But that's when we started getting it. Now, here's what happened next. We took it to the next level, because just when you think, well, it couldn't get worse with corporate buyers, you have people like Jeff Bezos that's using his name for a company called Arrived as a fractional ownership platform. And what happened was they said, look, we're going to sell these houses to investors, and they can buy, with a minimum of $100 investment, they can buy a fractional investment in a house. Well, what does that do? That fuels it. Well, what are these investment companies doing? They're buying the house for $400,000. They're selling it to the investment group for $450,000. They're making a $50,000 and sometimes more, sometimes less, but they're making a chunk of money on day one when they offer up this property. And then what do? They have a management company. So what does that, corporation have as skin in the game? Who is the lose? So what happens is you look at a lot of these fractional investors. Then we had these people come out, which was really a shocker, and they were telling you, hey, Jacob, you need $10,000, $15,000. Here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to come in. You're going to put on your deed that I'm partner in your house, and I get X amount of percentage. California was doing it, the state of California, right? So when you look at, offering up, hey, look, we'll buy into your house. We're going to give you money as a first-time buyer. We're going to give you a grant program, but we're going to own part of your house. And so when we start looking at these things happening, man, this is like going to hell in a handbasket, right? We're now taking home ownership and destroying it. We are now trying to use one of the only things that we could count on growing for 200 years more is a roof over our head, giving people, back in the day, man, before they had zoning, if you had a piece of property, you wanted to build your kid a house, you just did it.
Yeah.
You called your neighbors, you chopped down some trees, and you built them a house. We don't,
Well,
that's what we need.
My dad still lives in an area where he did that in northern Alabama. It's unregulated. There's no inspection. He bought a pile of lumber and built his house,
That's what we need. There's nothing wrong with that. We should be able to have some of the basics of life that people aren't so greedy that they commercialize it to the point that we can't afford it.
Right.
That's a problem. And then we have, these corporations. I got to be careful what I say, because when I use certain words or here on, this platform, they suppress our videos. But we have these other, entities that come out and say that you'll be just fine if you don't own anything, and actually it'd be better for you. And they're trying to convince us of that. That's terrible. You have no stability. You have no roots. You have a landlord that can kick you out, raise your rent, regulate you, tell you where you can go, what you can do in the house, what you can't do in the house, and completely take ownership away from you. And it
kind of stinks, because ownership isn't much different right now, especially in a state like Florida, where the insurances went up, property taxes go up. You're just renting from the government at that point.
You know what, though? If you own the house, you don't have to have insurance.
Right, that's true.
When I flip, you know what? And if you look at some of these things, the total. Now, look, guys, I am not telling you to cancel your insurance policies. But I have a very good friend of mine that sold his insurance agency, and he was just on my site not that long ago giving some real eye-opening stuff. But let me tell you what you can do. You could self-insure if you have no mortgage on the thing. You can self-insure. You can raise your deductibles to a very high amount. And if you save $3,000 a year or $2,000 or $1,000 a year by raising your deductible on it, the chances that you're going to have a complete and total loss. I mean, the insurance company's willing to give you, a $500,000 policy. So they know that they're, and again, I'm not advocating for you to cancel your insurance, but I will tell you, when I was doing flips and I was building houses, on the majority of them, I self-insured. I didn't pay the insurance. And you know what? I didn't buy title insurance either. And the lender makes you buy a title policy, and the title company convinces you need an owner's policy. I'm looking at it, I'm going, that freaking house is brand new. Who the hell can claim title on it? But they're going to sell you that it's a great idea, that you need to spend the $3,000 on the owner's policy, right? So we have to be educated. We have to be smart. We have to be educated. We have to sometimes take risks. But when you're looking at something like that, the real thing you can't get away from is your property taxes. But you can fight them. You could try and advocate, you could try and fight them. And I tell you what, I mean, that's something that we've been dealing with for, a long time. I think hundreds of years. Actually, I think property taxes are written in the Constitution, and a lot of people say it's unconstitutional because there's a trade-off that you should be getting, and people don't feel that they're getting it. But I would still much rather own a house, buy something that I can afford, prepay that sucker down as fast as I can, and me personally, eliminate the insurance policy. And depending on where I am, maybe I'm in a higher risk area, but the chances of me spending $5,000 or $6,000 for an annual policy, if I do that for 10 years before I have a claim, I've got $50,000, $60,000. Let me tell you what's worse is the insurance company telling you that you're not covered for that claim. So the real typical average claim, most people aren't covered for. They're not covered for sewer backup unless you have it in as a rider in your policy. Most people don't know that. You're not covered for groundwater intrusion. So you have a hurricane or a flood and it comes in and destroys everything. You're not covered for your appliances. So if your water heater goes out and destroys your hardwood floors, you're not covered for that unless you have that in your policy.
Hey,
so
Todd,
when
you're not covered. You're not covered if you're in between tenants and somebody breaks in and vandalizes the place. That's another.
Yeah. So I mean, but the thing is, I would still much rather own a house that I can afford and that I can plant down my roots and that I can have my family to where they're not, they can call their bedroom until I decide to sell. And that, or they go off to college and they don't have to worry about, I got to give up this house and so forth. So, I mean, it's the most tragic thing in the world. I'm not going to get into it, but when I was growing up, man, we were in pretty bad shape. And I have said it on a show before, but, nothing worse than being a kid and needing to fear about being kicked out of a house. And a lot of people are facing that right now, especially not just with foreclosures, but tenants. So I do believe in home ownership. I do believe that we need to stand up for it. I think we need to advocate for it. I remember one time Ben Carson, he was Secretary of HUD, and in the Trump administration, and I went to one of his events. He's a big philanthropist. He really helps a lot of people. He's a smart guy, super smart guy. He's right here in Baltimore. A brain surgeon, wrote a book, and his son is in business here in Maryland. But anyway, I met with him and I talked with him as a builder. And, one of the things that he said, and a lot of people were upset with him. I met with the, Housing Choice Voucher Program Director here in Baltimore County, podcasted with her. She said, how pissed off they were at Ben Carson and how he was destroying the welfare system and he was doing this and doing that. All he was basically saying is, look, we're giving a lot of money. I'm not saying that welfare is not good or it's not important, but if somebody's on welfare for 25 years, we may need to look at that and say, how are we helping people advance? When 25 years it takes to get on a housing choice voucher program, they used to call it Section 8. Many people just still call it Section 8. There's a 25-year backlog in Baltimore County alone. I'm not talking about Baltimore City. I'm just talking about one county, 25-year backlog to get housing assistance because the program's broke. And people have been on it for 25 and 30 years. I had a tenant one time, one of the nicest guys. I used to call him the mayor because at the time I had 8 units on one street and he would watch the place for me. He pulled into the office one day. He used to bring me the rent every single month. During the pandemic, he was shut down. He drove a cab. Then he got himself to a point to where he could buy a car. And then he was an Uber driver. And then the pandemic, he was afraid, did fall a little bit behind, but he ended up catching me almost 100% up. Ended up going into VA housing. But he said to me one day, he had an accident, was on a voucher program, and this guy came into my office one day and he was smiling from ear to ear. And he said, well, I'm going to be paying the rent myself from this point on. He said, I no longer need the voucher program. And I was like, you know what? You have got to be one of the best individuals I've ever met. You aspired to do something. The welfare is there certainly for the people that need it. I think we have to have something like that. But he aspired to be more. He aspired to be better. He aspired to be responsible and take it to a different level. And he was so proud of it. And, so I think, and that's what Ben Carson was trying to do. But I met him and we were talking and, and he said to me, he said, well, what do you think is going on here now in the housing market? I said, well, housing was becoming unaffordable during Trump time. We were going into 2019 into a recession. A lot of people don't know that. But I said, the red tape that is involved in building a house and the cost and the expense that goes into it is making it to where it's impossible. So builders are only building mansions, big mansions, because that's the only way that they can make money. There's no incentive for a builder to come in and they say, we need affordable housing, but they go, but not here, not in my neighborhood. We don't want it. We want it, but we don't, not here. So when they got it all wrong, so we don't need subsidy. We need incentives to build real affordable housing that doesn't make you different because you're living in a subsidy, right? You have pride and ownership. I can afford this. I can live here. That's what we need. And we did it back after World War II. The government came in, they cut red tape. You can see the neighborhoods that are scattered. You were in the military, a lot of it looks like military housing. All the houses look the same on the street, but you know what? My friends' parents lived there and some of them still live there from high school. From when I used to go over and visit them and go to those houses, it wasn't a starter home, it was home. So we have commercialized, just like I said, we've made Americans the consumers and we live to buy. We live a stressed out life. We work to buy. What we need to do is we need to get our priorities in order. And I'm hoping it's coming. And it's going to take a major reset.
Yep. Hey, gentlemen, I just wanted to come in and say hello. Jacob, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Phil?
It's good to see you. I saw you come on. I just wanted to come in. Todd said two things that make sense. The new construction. We just put a deal together, got 40 grand off the price, and also a 5.99 buy down for 30 years. So that's almost like a $70,000 swing because the buy down probably cost them about 30 grand. Those deals are coming. They're out there getting stronger. They're there. If you negotiate correctly, they're there. They're not advertising it, but if you know how to work the deal, they're working with you. Right. I did Tampa as well. Tampa here in Jacksonville. Just had some buyers coming down from South Chicago, and we're looking at new construction. I was able to work deals like that. Also, the houses on the market, they've been sitting 30, 60 days. Price cuts. You see the sellers getting nervous, and you see them. You can make an offer less. It's starting to happen. With the rate cuts, the rates are down about a quarter to a half a point in the last week or two. Buyers are starting to get a little more pre-approvals with the lenders we work with, and they're getting a little bit going on. It's not anywhere near a rush, but there's a little bit more activity. We have a bunch of listings right now. Showings are down huge. And with the NAR lawsuit, with that whole thing taking effect, I've noticed buyers calling me directly about the properties in the last week, and not agents. I've had 2 or 3 calls from agents. I've had 5 or 6 calls from buyers directly saying, they're not working with an agent, and can you tell me about the house? So that's one of the things. It's all happening in real time. There's so many factors. I think Todd probably can relate to it as well. But I just wanted to come in 5 minutes and say hello. And if you want, you asked how you can get the properties, and I can create a couple searches for you, and you can see the activity. You'll get notifications once a day, and it will tell you, hey, these came down. There was this many price drops. This many came on the market new. You'll have a notification, and you can pick the properties you like. You can put the ones you don't like in the trash can. You can put you put a little heart next to the ones you like, and it will update you on the entire market that we put the search for 90 days, and then I can reset it after 90 days. So there's a few tools we have. Just give me a call, man. You still have my number, yeah?
Will do. Yes, sir. I'm just stacking as much cash as I can between now and the first of the year, and then I'm gonna I'm going to get serious, but I'm spooked. I'm the perfect home buyer, but I am spooked to heck and back to get into the market right now. So,
well, and you have, and Jacob, and not to interrupt you, man, but here's the thing, man, a lot. So when I talk to, a lot of my military families, and when I look at, if they're spooked, I'm spooked. When I look at it, I go, geez, because, I think most people, they don't have a clue of everything that's going on and what could be going on. And when you look at, just what's happening around the world, I mean, we haven't even talked about that, but, you start looking at the serious things that are going on, you go, man, there is probably a lot that we should be concerned about. And I'm not trying to say don't come out of your houses, but I'm saying that, there's that. I think what you're feeling, Jacob, I think is real. I think you're smart. I think you're on track. But I do want to say something that Phil said, and then we'll bring in, we got two callers that are waiting. But what I do want to say is this. Let's take the buyer that bought right now, because this we hear a lot. And they go, okay, I made a decision. I pulled the trigger. I bought. I feel like I did a $70,000 plus. I got a great rate buy down. I'm going to plan on being there for 7, 8, 10 years. What happens if the price drops another $30,000 or $40,000? You go, guess what? You missed it. You have to be okay with that.
Right.
Yeah. It's if I'm looking at a house and I feel like, I feel like I've got a good shake here. I'm looking at it. I'm saying, it checks my boxes. I love the lot. The house is in good shape. I don't feel like, I'm not needing to go in and spend $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 of money that I'm not going to get out if the house goes down. That's the risk. The risk is if you're going to stay there less than 5 years, and then all of a sudden you buy, and maybe you got a little bit of a good deal, but if it falls much further, if you have to put $100,000 in the house to then sell it in 3 years because the market hasn't recovered, now you're hurt. So a lot of this comes into how long am I going to be there? How many boxes does it check? Do I feel like I'm getting a good deal? Can I afford it? Am I in a job that I feel good about? Do I have enough cash reserves? These are all positive indicators, that buy signals that say I'm ready to buy. So when you find something that checks the box, I would say be smart about it. Buy it if you can afford it. If you feel like you're getting a good deal, don't worry about, oh my gosh, it just went down another $20,000, it just went down another $30,000. If you stay in it long enough, inflation alone will bring the value of pricing back up. Right. It doesn't, if you're going to be there 10 years or it's your forever home or whatever, you're not going to get hurt. But I just wanted to bring that up because Phil was talking about a big price cut, but at the same point in time, we don't want to, we don't want buyers to neglect themselves on what they could buy or should buy. So anyway, Jacob, we love you, man. We appreciate you, and keep in touch with us. And anything I can do or Phil can do, you just reach out.
Thank you all. I appreciate what you do, Todd. Greatest content on YouTube. Thanks, guys.
Sir. Appreciate
it. All right, have a good one. Thanks, Jacob.
Phil, you can hang out if you want to, man. You can be on here.
Yeah, man. I got 14% on my phone.
All right. Well, we'll take it to the end. Who we got next? We got Benjamin. Hey, Benjamin, how are you, man?
Hey, doing good, Todd. Big fan of your show as well.
Thank you.
Been
Where you
watching you
from?
for a minute.
Yeah.
We are actually on Bainbridge Island in Washington right now. My partner Heather and I have been traveling in a giant coach for the last 4 years all over the country.
Wow.
So I have come from a construction background as well. My dad's a contractor, mom's a designer. I've been in the business my whole life. And last time we were facing a recession, it was the first time that I was actually starting to do contracting on my own. My very first house was 1 month away from completion, and Countrywide was my preferred lender right before it all hit. My real estate agent let 30 out of 30 potential buyers get turned down by Countrywide before I called and asked him, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And he let me know all that was happening. It was terrible. And I wanted to share something that I saw today on LinkedIn that I thought was absolutely crazy. I'm going to try to share my screen. And I thought this was absolutely bonkers, but it reminds me of what I was seeing whenever I was in the business earlier. And I don't know, can you see my screen? You see this all right?
Yep, and I've seen this.
This is DR Horton, Pensacola East Division, offering 8% commission.
Yep, and I
Reward
commented
their customers. Did you?
Yeah, I commented on geez, his
And
There you go.
he started Resi. What's the guy we podcasted with him? Gosh, it's a late night. The guy that started the program was with Fortune. You know, I mean, it's crazy. We talked. I should know the guy. He'd probably be insulted if he knew I was struggling to remember his name. But anyway, so he was on X and he pulled, huh? What? No. Anyway, he was on X and I commented on that. I said, and my Benjamin, what I said was desperate times call for desperate measures. And, you know, so here's what, you know, I mean, and this gets back to the old days, man, because when we were going through it, and I can completely relate with you, you know, I have to be 100% transparent when I say I never saw 2008 coming. You know, I had no idea it was going to be 10 years. You know, I was in the middle of building. You know, I had lots that we were working on, bringing up out of the ground, and I was doing some commercial investments. I had a strip center that I was building, in the process of selling retail condos, and I still have that property today. And I had them committed, so it was 8 units. I was going to keep 2 units and sell 6. I had them committed. Every one of them, just like dominoes, fell. They canceled the contract. I was buying shells that I was rehabbing in an area called Hamden for $135,000. It was the hottest area in Baltimore City. All the yuppies, you know, if that's even a thing anymore, you know, wanted to live there. And a lot of them were DC commuters. They were, you know, riding the MARC train, man. And I never got up in the morning as everything was happening. And we were just, negotiations were happening on hoods of cars, just like now, only different. It was more archaic. We didn't have the DocuSigns and the, you know, dot loops and these electronic contracts, but the agents would come out and negotiate and bring in their offer and the other one. And it was like it was crazy. It was like, I felt like Monty Hall. And what happened was all of a sudden, boom. And it was like, wow, man, this is falling fast. And the agents didn't see it. The agents are like, oh, I didn't see it in 2005, 2006, 2007, because they were still getting paid. But then when 2008 and 2009 hit and they were getting jobs, you know, but I feel for you, man, because I was in the same position. Now, I went through the early 90s and really almost lost it all. And so, you know, the difference between the early 90s and the 2008 crisis that started here in 2005 for builders, you know, I was able to survive. But had I tried to stay in there, I would have won out. It would have taken me down the tubes. I had to act fast. I had to cut prices fast. I wasn't able to sustain. I didn't have shareholders' money that I would be losing. It was mine. And when I was looking at dropping $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 off a list price of a house, I was glad to do it to get out from underneath of it, because I had no idea it was going to be a decade before it came back. So you're exactly right. And when we see builders starting to offer 8% commissions to try and entice, you know, there was a time when these builders and Ryan Holmes was one of them, man, they were offering like peanuts and chips for commissions. You know, when it was just 2 years ago, they're like, oh, you want to sell one of our houses? Well, we don't need you, agent, but we'll give you a bag of peanuts and chips. Obviously I'm kidding, but it's, you know, they weren't offering very much. And now all of a sudden they're like calling you. They want to come to office meetings. They want to, you know, learn how you can show their neighborhood, how they can pay you. Now, D.R. Horton, 8% in some of these communities. So they're realizing that shit's hitting the fan and that, you know what, we got to do something now. And when you see D.R. Horton do that, one of the richest home builders, biggest home builders in America, that is some writing on the wall. And I don't think I finished my story. Ivy Zellman, you guys can look her up. She's now saying that it's a buyer's market in the new construction. On Adam Taggart, you can go over to my buddy Adam Taggart. He has Thoughtful Money. Plug out for him. You can check his YouTube channel out and tell him that we sent you over there. But he just interviewed Ivy Zellman. I've been trying to interview her for years. I want to know how he got that, and I didn't. But I don't know, maybe she's coming around. But she went off the rails, in my opinion, saying that we weren't going to look at another housing crash, and now I think she might be coming around. But anyway, Benjamin.
Yeah, so I was curious, as we're seeing, as I'm seeing that, I'm also hearing about greater than 43% DTI loans being given out.
Over
and I'm
50.
just,
Over 50.
And then Fannie and Freddie end up with these. I'm just curious, like, where does this go from there? Like, how does that end? Because that's not within the regulation that they're supposed to be operating within, and then they're selling it to the government. Like, do lenders ever actually have to pay the piper for this? Like, where does it go, Todd?
Here's what's happening, and I'm glad you brought it up, because some would say that the government, the federal government, is the new subprime lender. When you look at the crisis that we had, the only difference between then and now is our federal government is insuring these loans and backing these loans. And what's happening is, when you have a government that can continue to print money, you wonder how long it can continue before it implodes. There are some people that think that we're very close to that now because of our debt. And there are other people that think that Bitcoin is going to be the savior, or cryptocurrency is going to be the way that we get out of this debt crisis. And depending on who you talk to, who knows whether it's true or not. But when we look at, what's happening, people don't realize that Fannie Mae has already bundled and sold tens of thousands of non-performing loans and reperforming loans. They're called NPLs and RPLs. You can look it up. You can Google it. They are selling and bundling these loans, and they're selling them to institutions. They have two different types of pools. They have a pool that goes to the bigger investors, and they got a pool that goes to the smaller investors because they want to be fair to the smaller investors. They want to be a, equal opportunity seller of these, auctioneer of these loans that where people have defaulted. So rather than foreclose on them, what they're doing is they've remodified over 1 million loans. And so what they do is they've remodified, taken off principal balances off a lot of people don't realize that. Used to be that the FHA could take 25% of your loan balance if you were in default and cast it into an interest-free second mortgage and make it one payment at the end and take 25% off your balance. Biden made it 30% during the pandemic boom. And so what happened was they took the balances, so they remodified. They tried to drop the payments, and a lot of these people still couldn't make ends meet. But they didn't. The last thing that they wanted to see was evictions or foreclosures. So they had moratoriums in place. So now what they've done is they bundle these up, these non-performing and reperforming loans, and they're selling them. Of course, it's all not being broadcast. We're broadcasting it, but you're not hearing it. You can Google it, and you can find it. What I'm saying is so. So the difference is that they're going to put the eviction or the foreclosure process on somebody else. Like, look, we want to get this off of our watch and get it onto somebody else's watch. And they put some guidelines in place to where the people just don't swoop in and take the house. But these are investors. So one might think, well, what does an investor want to buy all these non-performing loans for? Well, when you look at it, a lot of these loans are bought at 46% or greater. I think I've even seen some that are like 64%. This is transparent. You can see these, but loan to value. So they're buying the loans for less. So if somebody owes $100,000, maybe they're buying 85 cents on the dollar on that loan, but that $100,000 loan that they're buying for 85,000 is worth, there's 64% equity in it, so they can't really lose. I mean, even if they had to come in and rehab the house, they're still getting a good deal on the house. So when you look at these, and as they publish these sales of these loans, these non-performing and reperforming loans, they're just happening right now, and you're just not hearing about it. But this is happening to the tune of tens of thousands of these things, and we are seeing delinquencies that are rising. So when we look at mortgage delinquencies, we're just not seeing foreclosures. And, what a lot of people don't realize when we're saying that home prices can crash 70%, these are distressed homes. So when you're looking at a house that was $400,000 and no one fixed it, and you have mold growing 2 inches off of the walls, and you have rotted wood, and there's all kinds of damage, who's going to buy that house? An investor, and it could be 70% off. So, when people are turning their nose to the fact that home prices won't go down, we're going to get in a repeat of something that we've seen in 2008, and I believe it's going to be much worse. So I think, and you were with Countrywide, man. That was the that was the big one. That was the big one.
My one of my best friends was my real estate agent. I was in the guy's wedding, and whenever it came time to close on those homes, I lost money. He looked me in the face as he took his commission and made money off of it. So it happens.
I was the same. Yeah.
Thanks for doing what you do, Todd. A lot of people don't talk about all that back in the day. I had builders congratulating me on losing money because I was one of few that wasn't sticking the vendors with the bill and causing vendors to go bankrupt. So it can get bad quick. So I appreciate you talking about this in a real way. Very few people do. I will say this. You need to accept my LinkedIn connection, though. Speaking of LinkedIn, I sent you one a while back, all right?
All right. Well, I don't know if you can resend it again, but man, put it to the top. But I will. I'll have Joe remind me. I'll have Joe remind me. We'll accept that, man, and you can reach out anytime. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
God bless, man. You got it, Benjamin. Talk to you soon. And we got one more here. We got first-time home buyer, man. I think here we go. What's happening?
Wow, Todd. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks for your patience. You hung in there.
Thank you.
What's your name? I know it's not first time.
My name is Michael.
Michael. Where are you calling from?
Myself, I'm 30 years old. I just had a baby. She's 8 months old.
Amen.
And I just got my first pre-approval, man. I submitted an offer for a house I was 89K under.
Okay.
And, it was a learning experience for me. But my question is with regards to that inflation comment that you made earlier, too. Mm-hmm. I get this from Dave Ramsey. I get this from everyone, that everyone seems to think the general tone is that houses just keep going up.
Mm-hmm.
And they just
Barbara Corcoran. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so my thing is like, and I just want to thank you for your time, because I called Phil. I got Phil on the phone. Haven't been able to get in touch with him since. He wanted me to do a Zoom call with one of his mortgage guys. I will at some point, but right now, this trouble that I'm having as a first-time home buyer, sir, is that I can't find a single piece of property that I'm willing to, even like the one that I underbid 89 on. It's like, I felt like I paid strong on that house. I felt like I could do something with that house. It had potential, but I'm competing against institutions, people that have equity, people that have multiple homes, people that have, the last house we just looked at was it sold in 2019 for $208,000. Glassdoor came in. It's a dump, man. I mean, it's in a dumpy neighborhood. It's not like, it's, again, this is, I don't want to be.
You're in Florida, I guess, if you talk to Phil.
Well, there's different levels, to this, because like every house in California is $1 million, right?
Are you in Florida?
I'm in Florida. Yep.
Okay, Florida.
But I come from Boston. So my parents live in Boston. They live in this, 2,000 square foot house where the lot lines are like 5 feet from their neighbor, and their house is worth $1 million now. And it's like, that's insane to me. But I grew up in a small town in southern Maine on like a really nice house and like right near the beach. And I was very blessed as a kid. I didn't realize, but I don't have a trust fund. My parents really didn't even give me any money. So it's all on me. And so I'm trying to grow my net worth. I'm trying to build sustainability here. And like talking about those sticky situations, I don't just follow Peter Schiff. I follow Jeremiah Babe. I follow other people with insights that are higher level than my own, so I can try to learn. And I've been doing that. Smart. I got into crypto. You brought up crypto. I use crypto to grow my wealth, because if I keep it in dollars, it does. It doesn't go up, man. It just stays. If I have $1,000 saved, that's $1,000 tomorrow. It's $1,000 in a year. But what does it get you? What does it get you? So I got into gold. That was the first thing I got into. And so that's what I'm about. But
well, you sound smart. How old? You say you're 30?
Yes, sir.
So are you married?
Well, common law. Yeah. I mean, we've been together. So great story about that. She lived in Florida. I lived in Boston. We dated long distance for a year.
Are you renting?
Sorry.
Are you renting?
Yeah, man.
Or living with family? Or are you renting?
I'm renting right now. We pay $2,600 a month Man, it's a 3-2. And we moved every single year. Ever since I met my wife, we moved every single year.
You said you just had a baby.
Yeah, I'm 8-month-old now. Yeah, 8 months. It gone by like that. She was like this big.
So you have some time before your 8-month-old is going to be ready for school. I mean, they're going to be 5 years old. You've got 4 more years before you really need to start thinking about, putting them, is a son, daughter? You have
it's a daughter, but then I worry, where's this really Todd? Like, am I going to even put them in public schools? Like, what are they?
Well, and that'd be a choice that you have, but you have some time is my point. And you're already renting right now. If I were you, and it sounds like you're trying to diversify yourself, I would probably be looking at something. If if I were 30 years old and I was in your situation and I have a couple generations to go, man, you do life well. You're going to live a long life. You're going to, I think the biggest thing that I see a lot of young people, they get a little impatient. They want everything. I think, and you listen to a lot of smart people. One of the people that I read all of his books and listened to for years and years and years, a guy named Grant Cardone. A lot of people get mad at him, right?
Well,
but he says, one of the dumbest things that we can do is own a house that we live in. Now he doesn't believe in that, for when you're ready to lay down your roots.
You know what I mean?
What's that?
He wants us to all be renters. That's why he pushes that.
Well, I think the biggest message, if you come out of that, is to say not that he wants you to be a renter, but he wants you to invest in a piece of property that you can make some income on. So if I were you at 30 years old, I would be looking at a duplex or a quad or a triplex. I would be looking for a piece of property that only an investor would want. And the reason is because these investors, they want profit. They want cash flow. They're buying cash flow. If I was 30 years old, you're buying crypto, you're buying gold, you're trying to diversify, you want to amass some wealth. You obviously have some, you're doing pretty well. So now I would be thinking about, look, if I have a young baby, it's not going to matter to that baby if there's an apartment in a house or an apartment that I'm living in right now or a house that I'm renting and she's 8 months old. So I would be saying, I would be looking for, can I find a quad or a fourplex? And then I would try and take advantage of a government loan program through Freddie Mac.
Okay.
Yeah, they have
heroes right now.
What's that?
There's a hometown heroes thing going on right now where they give you a certain percentage of your closing costs. Now, this is the predicament that I'm in. I can get
Freddie Mac will give you a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Right. And you're not going to get that anywhere from an investor loan program at a bank. You're going to be paying, 8, 9, 10%. You're going to have to put 25% down. If you go to a commercial bank as an investor and you say, I want to buy this fourplex and it's $600,000 or $800,000, whatever it is, $400,000, doesn't matter. And you want a construction loan, you want to improve it, and you want that wrapped up in your loan. I've done these. When I was young, I did these. I had rentals and I still do. But what happens is, you take advantage of the government program that's out there through Freddie Mac. Now, you can't buy it initially in an LLC. You got to buy it in your personal name, but there's ways around that later after you get the loan. I'm not a mortgage expert, but if you say, look, I want to take advantage of a government loan. I want to get a fixed rate low mortgage where I don't have to put down 25 and 30% down. I'm young enough and I can take some risks and I don't need to worry about a school system tomorrow, whether I homeschool or whatever. And then in 3 years, I'm out of there. I'm out of there and I'm on to something else. But now, at least I've got myself a rental property of 3 or 4 units, not a single family house, but I have something that is a true commercial investment, and you keep that sucker forever.
Wow, that's so no one's shared that insight with me. My mortgage, because my mortgage broker got me into looking at these quarter-acre lot standard single family houses. Because what I wanted was, I'm a long-term thinker, sir. I see where this is going. I want chickens in the backyard. I want to have a minimum 5 or 10 acres. Because I want to be able to build my daughter a house in the backyard if I have to with sticks. That's what I want, because my parents didn't do that for me. And here I am. I'm stuck. I make 6 figures now. My wife makes 6 figures. And we're like, dang, if we buy a house, we're going to be broke. We're going to be completely.
I think you are smart. And I think that would probably serve you very well. and you're in a position that you probably will never be in for the rest of your life, because the older we get and the more that we can't do these riskier things, or we can't take these opportunities at 30 years old. I mean, you can fail and get up and dust yourself off, man, and you keep on going. I mean, so I would be looking at, how can I start to do things? You're buying at the top of the market right now. If you're buying a house to live in, if you're going to go out and buy a 5-acre parcel with your dream house and things like that, you're not ready to do that. You're not ready to, you may think you're ready to do that, but you need to diversify and protect yourself, your asset, do some asset protection, and make sure that you have, when things are going to hit the fan. These are things that, and I don't really advocate for people to go out and buy single family houses for rentals. I've done it. I think, a mom and pop, there is a lot of value in that. There are people that can't buy houses and they should rent, but I'm all about investors investing in multifamily buildings where you're reducing your risk for vacancies. You get one unit that's empty, 3 of them are still full. You lose half of them. You still have 2 of them that are coming in. The cutoff is 4 units. With Freddie Mac, you can have up to 10 of those. You can have 40 units by a Freddie Mac investor loan. You can have up to 40 units, 10 fourplexes on a fixed rate mortgage for 30 years at hardly any money down. And that is underutilized.
Can find me one of those here in Florida, because I'm open to that. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to be a landlord.
He can find it. And I'll tell you what. Here's the thing. You can even take advantage of a construction loan, and you can look for a commercial building that's sitting vacant in a commercial strip that may even be able to have a storefront on the first floor. Now, maybe you don't put that in right away because you don't want to live over a store. But maybe you look at a corner, building, something that's zoned for multifamily. Maybe it's got commercial on the first floor. It's got 2 or 3 apartments on the second floor. It still qualifies for a 4-unit. You can look at the zoning, and that's what a lot of people don't do enough of. You can look at commercial, and a lot of times residential is a reduction in density. So if you look at an office building, a small office building that, is sitting vacant, that you can go in and really get for pennies on the dollar, 30 cents, 40 cents on the dollar. You go in and you do a conversion. You have a parking lot. Now you've got, green space. You can put in a dog walk area, park area. You can put in a playground. And now you can convert that commercial building into 4 apartments, and you can wrap all that in your construction loan of your investor loan from a Freddie Mac program. So I think if I were you, because I can already tell you're entrepreneurial in spirit. I mean, you're into protecting yourself. You're bright. You see the writing on the wall. You're
it's gonna kill us. I mean, because like the interest rate, I just want to buy a house. I want to be a homeowner and say, oh, I have a house. But like, the price of the houses need to come down $100,000. Like,
what if you built your own?
Where I need all these companies that thought they were going to come in and speculate. I need them to lose their asses so that I can come in and get a decent deal on a house. And the problem that I'm running into with the industry, and I appreciate your time, man, is everybody has made so much money in it. Everybody, just like Bitcoin, anybody that's been in Bitcoin, you try to tell them it's gonna go to nothing. They're not hearing it. They're not hearing it. So, I want to be a homeowner. I don't want to be at the whims of rent. The fridge breaks. I gotta do all these stupid contracts back and forth. Oh, well, now I got to buy a washing machine for this rental. And I bought it, now I'm buying a washing machine for a rental place. It's like, what? I might as well just do all the work and fix the places. Anyways.
Well, if you have the wrong landlord, they'll let you. They'll let you put all your money in it. Look, I think you're on track. I think you just, the advice that I have for you is, and I'm old enough to be your father. So the advice that I have for you is, you're on the right track. Be smart about it. I would look for an investment property. I would call that my home. You would be a homeowner. You will own it. And you will have some equity, and you will put yourself in a position that in 3 or 4 years or 5 years, your daughter will be 5 or 6 years old. She's still a baby. But at the same point in time, you will move into a place that you will have, call it a home and not an investment property, and you'll be a lot better off for it.
That's great advice.
That's what I would do.
First person to say that. The mortgage guy got me into a single family idea, get rid of the farm. He said, buy something in a good zip code. Because I wanted a farm, man. I was like, listen, I see where this is going. I want a farm. But now I'm here. And then I'm thinking, wait a second. I live in Orlando. I live near the beach, Disney. There's got to be an opportunity to come in and buy something where I can generate income too. And
what's that area next to you? Is it called Millennium? There's a mall around there or whatever.
That's Mall Millennia. That's where
what is it? Millennia. Right. So let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Back in the crisis.
Okay.
I had a buddy of mine that said, man, he goes, you want to buy some of these brand new condo units in, Millennia? They were giving 2-bedroom, 2-bath condos away for $30,000 cash. That's how bad it got. And I said, nah, man, I'm not going to buy.
Buy one of those right now.
Man, I tell you what, I should have bought the whole building, right?
Right now.
I should have bought the whole building. But yeah, I mean, Doc Phillips or whatever it is right down the street. I had a buddy of mine went there and cleaned up. I mean, he was buying houses, single family houses, flipping them. And isn't it called Doc Phillips? It's on the other side of
now, do you know?
What's that?
What do they go for now, those houses?
I have no idea. I haven't tracked that, man. I was tracking it because my buddy was buying them, and I'm going, man, I should be buying them. And I'm thinking, man, what do I need to buy houses and manage things in Florida, and I'm in Maryland. And, I mean, sometimes you just got to say.
That's where all the money is. People go to that mall, that all the most expensive luxury goods are in that mall.
There you go.
All the most, watch and everything is premium there.
And they made Medical Park or Medical City or whatever the heck it's called. I mean, I'm familiar with the area. I don't, I've only been there a couple times in my life, but I know that they've built it up. And what I like about Florida and what I like about that area is that they built it after the car. So everything flows well. It's like if you want to get somewhere, you can get there easily. Here in Maryland, most of the streets were horse and buggy. So, they don't, you can't get around very well. But look,
real
man,
estate, it just keeps going up there. It just keeps going up.
Yep.
No matter, a garage will cost you $500,000. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
you're going to see an adjustment
and get something. So I don't let inflation eat away until the point where I literally, I can own gold. I can own Bitcoin. That's great. But I need real estate. That's the next cure for a lean purse. Make thy home a profitable dwelling. And I don't have that yet. So
you'll do it. Reach out to Phil. Reach out to me, man. Reach out anytime. You can send me an email.
God bless you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
you got it. God
being
bless
honest
you.
with the public. Thank you.
I appreciate you. There's my email right there. TS, very easy. TS for Todd Sachs, SachsRealty.com. Send me an email. Sometimes it takes me a couple weeks to get back because I get inundated. I get about 500 to 600 emails a day.
God bless you.
So it's, as you can imagine, I try and knock them out in the morning before I get as I'm having my 2 coffee wake up session. Try and knock out a lot of the emails. So send me an email, but God bless you. And guys, we thank you so much. We thank you for great callers and a great audience. I'm honored to be able to serve such a great audience and have such a community on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please consider doing so now. And if you like the video, you can let me know you did by hitting that thumbs up. And guys, if you need an agent, you need help, reach out to me anytime. God bless you guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you next time.